Sutton Brady. I just had to come meet you. I work in the fashion department. Your swimsuit line is incredible.
Thanks, girl.
Tess is taking over a Snapchat for a day of shopping.
Yeah, it's gonna be really tough shopping in New York on Scarlett's credit card, but I'm mentally preparing.
It's very interesting talking about Tess Holliday because in a weird way, it can feel a little bit gimmicky. And I think it's interesting because how can it feel anything else? Because Tess Holliday is a little bit of a gimmick in a sense. But in this video, I want to look past the gimmick or the grift or whatever, the stunt to pull to get famous, and kind of find the person behind it. The point of this video is to go and dive into the very early fame of Tess Holliday that is often buried under the mega fame she would get with the infamous magazine covers and channels ripping her apart and all that other stuff. And I think it's very interesting because I don't think, just up front, it's not like there was this big shift, this big rebrand, this hidden past that she's hiding. In a sense, ever since Tess Holliday first started to get famous online, she has always been the person you see now, most of the time. But I think there have been some changes and a little pieces of history forgotten that I really think, even though they're little nuggets, I think when put together do show a very different person. And I'm getting all this from looking at her very early content because she started up her Instagram, well her Instagram, sorry, got kind of famous around 2014 is when it really became like really big. But obviously, you know, given her age, there's like a long gap period between, you know, roughly when she graduated high school to, you know, when she like obviously got famous online. And I always knew she had to have tried some online fame before that. And an early Instagram post does indeed back up that she had a blog, tessmunster.com, when she was going by Tess Munster. And I analyzed that blog at the Wayback Machine. So that's what you're going to be seeing, those very early posts, her very early production of content. But before I go into that, because again, I don't want to just like throw all that content at you and say like, here it is. I want to just give my thoughts on that content and kind of what I noticed. You'll see it, and then I'm going to go again and give what I think that content really means, and also some other things I found. So just from going through her early blog posts and seeing what actually got her famous, what actually made her into the Tess Holliday we know today, I want to credit and say that Tess Holliday is someone who worked extremely hard at her career path as a model. She really did. She was very big in the indie fashion and indie underground alternative model scene. And she networked her ass off. She put a lot of hard work into her content. She definitely, embodied fashion with a mission, way ahead of when, you know, direct-to-consumer brands would say, oh, we're a brand with a mission, with a purpose to make the world. She was walking the walk on that, which I think is very commendable, actually. I really do. And also, it's interesting because, yes, she always was about body positivity, and the whole F Your Beauty Standards thing, that community she has running on Instagram with the hashtag, that's not just an Instagram thing. She always had that going way before Instagram. I mean, yes, it was about body being a plus-size model, but I would say in her early fame, she was actually more of a plus-size fashion advocate than a body positivity model, even though I know the two are pretty much one and the same, and to a certain degree, she always was, you know, about, look, this is my body, but it was more about, let's get more inclusive clothing, a little bit more than this is my body, before, you know, she would be like that on Instagram much later on. So, and I think, again, all of that is very, 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 she deserves a big applaud for that. For advocating for a more inclusive fashion industry, for advocating for the brands that do indeed actually care to cater to a wider demographic so more people can feel beautiful and stylish and all. All the brands she worked with, oh my god, and photographers and designers, the list is so impressive, you'll see. In a sense, actually, a huge part of her blog was actually she was a bit of a plus-size fashion seller, so kind of like a you know, she had her own little kind of store going. I mean, she would just post like, I have this for sale. It wasn't like she was running an actual store, but that kind of mixed in with her posts and her modeling really actually made for a very immersive fashion experience, which is arguably a little bit better more than what other fashion blogs were doing at the time. Because other fashion blogs were just, this is where I got it from. Tess was like, hey, I got it, you can have it also directly from me, helping support one plus size person to another, keeping the bond within the community very strong. It's also very interesting because scrolling back through her Instagram to when it first started, and then obviously kind of scrolling through her posts and everything, before she was partnering with these designers and boutiques and getting big modeling gigs and photographers, she was really scrappy because like a lot of her early Instagram is just like mirror selfie with an occasional professional photography shot. Obviously she didn't have as much money at the time, so not every picture could be so polished. Her blog posts, I mean, look, she was never like the most skilled graphic designer or content creator on her own, but you could see she was putting in the work. You could see there was a lot of heart in her writing. You could see, even though she maybe wasn't the most professional photographer on her own, when she was having to just rely on herself for photography and wasn't using someone else, she still tried as hard as she could. And I really do think both on her blog and Instagram, having just the more casual photos of just her, you know, posing with friends like this, you know, in front of a restaurant or whatever, kind of mixed in with, you know, the actual more like photography studio shots in a studio with a makeup artist and hair and everything. I think those mixed in actually really worked so nicely for her in Fame because the whole it didn't feel pretentious. She was a plus size model, but she didn't feel like a plus size model that felt she existed on a whole different plane than the rest of the average, you know, plus size American person, which I think gave her a little more sense of relatability. So I think actually the fact she wasn't the most skilled at these things and also knew how to network with more skilled people simultaneously was a big bonus for her. It's very interesting because I guess one question I have left unanswered is what made her want to get into modeling in the first place? Again, figuring out kind of what she started her blog around 2010. What she was doing before that, I actually don't know. Other than you'll see, she said she was living in Seattle. I don't know what she was doing there. Maybe just her husband was supporting her at the time. I know later on she would claim her husband was very abusive and it was a bad relationship when she got a divorce from him. But again, her early Instagram, he is plastered all over there. And they look so happy. Actually, they really look like such an adorable couple. The other thing I'm very interested in is she gravitated towards a pinup style, which I think made a little bit more sense. And oh my god, you know what? I should be more of an expert on pinup style because when I was in fashion school, pinups were such a huge inspiration for so many people. I guess I found them so kitsch and gaudy, which is so weird because my style, like generally, I'm super kitsch and gaudy. I should be. I probably should have researched this for this video. I'm sorry about this, but just fashion critics, please don't come at me. Pinup styles were very much, you know, a little more risque, a little bit more like a tongue-in-cheek parody of the cute little girl next door with a slight edge, a slight sex appeal, kind of between girl next door and just outright Playboy bunny showgirl kind of thing. You know, it was like a fun little tease, a little mini burlesque kind of stuff. And pinup girls, because of the voluptuousness attracted to their, you know, boobs and butt, even though pinup girls back in the day, like Betty Page, were not, you know, considered plus size, I think the fact it's more, you know, bodacious figure was more appreciated in that community was a good access point for plus size people. So I think a lot of plus size models like Tess Holliday were kind of gravitating towards, you know, pinup girl kind of aesthetic. Not to mention, pinup girl aesthetic definitely found a home in kind of alt fashion scene as well if you weren't being emo goth. And it also was seen as kind of like feminist rebellion as well in a lot of ways. So like Rosie the Riveter kind of way, but for fashion. And Katy Perry was very pinup, like very feisty feminist girl and pinup girl, and very much loved to kind of flaunt her body, but in a more funny, not so, oh, I'm so much sexier than you way as well. I think Tess Holliday very much gravitated towards that message as well. And whether she did the pinup because she knew it was going to work more for a plus size model or she just likes it on her own, hard to say. Maybe a little bit of both. The other thing, again, I think there was such a lovability about Tess Holliday when she was very much advocating for a more inclusive fashion industry, I guess is because, I mean, she was using herself as the medium for advocating, so of course it was about her, but also she was really shining a light on all the hardworking people in the underground fashion industry and very immersed in that community as well. It really felt like getting to know her was just getting to know this whole fun underground party online that, you know, you never would have discovered otherwise because you're just busy, I don't know, shopping at H&M or something. I also think just another thing is Tess just was another person who was kind of just right place, right time. Right place started blogging when blogging really started to really embrace underground alternative fashion and become a very safe space for that. Right aesthetic, the pinup girl aesthetic. Right personality, getting to know the right people, living in Los Angeles. Someone who could be loud and outspoken, but also make everyone else and her fans feel more comfortable and at home also as well. So you felt like you were helping join in the fight without having to feel like you were in a battlefield. I just want to talk a little bit about plus size modeling also in general at the time. Tess Holliday had a Tumblr as well. I couldn't find it or recover it. I'm not sure how popular it was. On the online plus, look, I know Tumblr was huge for Pro-Ana, was a Pro-Ana utopia. There was a plus size community on Tumblr. There were other plus size fashion bloggers as well. The problem is they tended to skew heavily towards fat fetish porn. I hate to say that. I'm not saying that's right. That's just how it was. And I think definitely it was maybe more refreshing for Tess Holliday to be proud of her body, but wasn't at all using it to get men's attention. It was a woman who loved fashion with her plus size body for also women who love fashion with her plus size body. But now let's go ahead and go into her actual content. Okay, so diving into what the old posts. So the Wayback Machine goes back as far as 2012, and the first post is actually where she talks about, a recap of 2011. So let's see what we got here. 2011 recap, catch me if you can. After much thought, I decided to do a recap of 2011 of all my new and faithful fans. I can truly say that 2011 was the best year of my life. All of my dreams slowly came true, and I got to work and meet with some great people. Let's see, one of my favorite photos of the year taken November 2011. My amazing year started with A&E show Heavy debuting in January. Never in my wildest dreams did I imagine that my face would be on a billboard all across the country, in every major magazine and all over TV. It was my very first professional modeling job. And I'm happy to say that I did it all without an agent. So, okay, here you go. Here's her standing in front of a billboard for an A&E show called Heavy, which I never watched. And to be clear, it seems like she was in the show Heavy. No. All she did was model for the promotional poster for the show Heavy. She was never in the show, just to be clear, because that can be kind of confusing. She just forgot to specify that. To be honest, let's be clear, I don't think she would ever have had a haircut like that. And I've actually never watched the show, so I don't know if it's good or bad or not. And then she writes, heck, J-Lo tweeted a picture of her with my billboard behind her. Doesn't get better than that. Okay, I don't know if J-Lo actually was posing with that billboard or the billboard just happened to be behind her. I'm not sure. Okay, so then the next thing she writes is, I was featured in Plus Model magazine as a model to watch. It was my first interview feature, so she was in a magazine. So here, down here, Tess Munster, the face of Heavy. Oh, it's referencing her billboard. I started my blog with a post about how to love your body any size. It was all about the labels that society puts on us. It was super successful, and my blog has continued to grow and reach women everywhere. I was also featured in my first faction blog, Thick Threads. Okay, I wonder if that post is still up. I have to look at that, Thick Threads, and see. I took it off for Monique Antoinette and my career exploded. I could have never dreamed the impact of my infamous bunny photos would have. So I guess these were the original photos that made her go viral with a woman by the name of Monique Antoinette Photography. Is that the Easter Bunny? Is it like a Playboy Bunny thing, or is it just she's just parodying the Easter Bunny? Interesting theme to go with, Easter Bunny. Interesting photographs. Okay, so, oh my god, but look how much smaller she was. Whoops, sorry for knocked my keys over. Look how much smaller she was at this time. Oh my god. Look at that. Wow. She was so much, okay. Was a super amazing dream month for me. Torrid asked me to test shoot for them, even though they chose not to use me. I landed the best gig a gal could dream of, modeling for a plus-size clothing line, Domino Dollhouse. I not only got to work with a legendary photographer, Shannon Brooke, but I finally felt valued at size 22. Oh, she used to be a size 22? Wow, that was her rich size 22. I was no longer going to feel shamed about being my size, but celebrated through super funky and fresh fashions. Can I get an amen? Okay, so here we go. Okay, so here's, I guess, her on a photo shoot with the photo shoot. Okay, working. Wow. I also shot for Inked Magazine Australia in May, too. I got the chance to work with Monique Antoinette and had such a blast. Oh, so that photo set of the Easter Bunny was for Inked Magazine? Not sure. No. This looks like for something different. Okay, you can read more about my life as a model in May here. Okay, so, okay. June. The Makeout Circus collection for Domino Dollhouse debuted. Okay, so this was her Domino Dollhouse one. This was her. Let's see. Oh, and then Inked did a story on her. Interesting. It's very difficult to get to click on extra stuff in Wayback Machine. Let me see if I can get, if I'm able to pull that. Give me one moment. Let's see. Yeah, I'm sorry. It's too small for me to read. I can't. I'll see if I can find it later. I became a beauty editor for Scorch magazine. Wait, Scorch is a real magazine? Scorch was the fictional magazine Sabrina from Sabrina the Teenage Witch was working at when she graduated college. That's a real Scorch? Or, okay, no, I'm sure it's probably just a coincidence, but that's just funny. Okay, how to look flawless. Okay, wow, she was getting a lot of write-ups, a lot of mainstream media. And then she hit the red carpet with them. I attended a VH1 Rock for a Cure thrown by Evil Pawn Jewelry. Wow, look at all the sponsorships and brands she was getting and all. I mean, her Instagram was pretty big at this time, but not what it was. I think, again, this is majority off the back of her blog. Okay. July, my 26th Sanremo-themed birthday. So she was 26 in 2011. Sanrio theme, sorry, not Sanrio, Sanrio. Sanrio theme, interesting. Okay. The gang at Tiki T in Hollywood. Wow, okay, I don't know who any of these people are. Probably just like makeup artists and models and fashion designers. Oh, look, she's a kitty. Okay, look at that there. I was featured on City Chic's blogger site as a plus-size inspiration. So she was really making the rounds as like in the plus-size blogging community, it really seems. So, of course, off the back of her own blog. I traveled to San Francisco to shoot with Cat Attack Photography and Sarah Cabrera Hernandez. Look at these crazy color themes. It's kind of like it was really the beginning of more like cosplay-themed photography, fashion photography, which was started to gain traction in the early 2010s. And then August, Delectable Dress Collection by Domino Dollhouse. Those are some cute designs. They really are. Delectable dress, food-themed dresses, that's fun. And then, of course, and sadly, my little angel, Vince Munoz, lost his brave battle with brain cancer. This part deserves so much more than what I'm saying, but it is too hard. Something's are better left unsaid. This is by far the hardest thing I endured all year. It changed my life for the positive way. Life is short, remember that. I cherish those you love. This picture is of her son. My little nugget started kindergarten. I'm sorry, I jumped the gun, sorry. This is Vincenzo. So who is that? He was the best little buddy a girl could ask for. R.I.P. my friend. I guess maybe son of a friend or something. I'm not sure. September. Became a model for Tatted Zombie accessories. Look at all the brands. Damn, these brands were just like going crazy. And her being in these small publications appeared in Rabid magazine. Like magazines and brands were just like clawing to like work with her. Oh my god, okay. And then she also modeled for a site called Sick for Cute. What's Sick for Cute? I don't even know what that is. Okay, interesting. I can read, it's big enough I can read this ad copy. Everyone knows and loves the original keyboard cat. We love him so much that we wanted to dedicate an entire t-shirt print to him, R.I.P. Fatso. This tee features two adorable black kitty cats floating, oh my god, the keyboard cat, the meme, one of the most explosive memes on the internet. Okay. Traveled to San Francisco to shoot with an editorial with Michelle Alexandra at SCH Studios. And behind the scenes, wow, okay. And then, man, became a man-eater. Oh my god, look at that. Went to Disneyland for the first time. Shot with Michelle Muerte for the first time. And have grown to have much love for her and her work. Wow. And the photographers. And she was doing really more like costumey kind of themes and stuff. Okay. She was with the photographers Natalie Ferrano and Monique Antoinette. Started modeling for Vintage Box 1947. Again, all these niche brands. She was the queen of indie brands, like, for a long time. Makes sense, they could want to appeal to, like, a more niche audience that are outside the mainstream, which I guess also includes plus size. Became a redhead. Then red would become her signature hair color. Wow. Was featured in November's Drive-In magazine. Where are all these magazines? What is with all these magazines? Holy crap. Oh my god. Became a columnist for the Gay Reporter. I think she later on does she identify as pansexual now? I think she does. Tess Munster, our new straight girl. Oh no, at this time she was identifying as straight. This is a quote from the magazine. Our new straight girl and ultimate BFF, plus-size pinup Tess models the face of A&E's new show Heavy with a model career of mega wolf flashbulb attention, outspoken for her activism to empower women. Tess is a true starlet with curves to prove it. Keep the tabs on the Gay Reporter for when Tess debuts her new column. Started modeling for Razor Hearts Jewelry. All these brands. I have to say, the brands that she worked with look awesome. I'm like, damn. I really think this stuff is amazing. Featured in Plus Model magazine. Oh my god. Appeared on my first cover for Scorch magazine. Had a 10-page feature including a spread shot by Michelle Alexandra. And she was called the Dark Beauty. I guess it was a goth theme she was doing for Scorch. You can check my full feature here. Collaborate with one of my idols, Rosie Mercado. What's great about Rosie Mercado, can someone tell me, this is from Muerte magazine. So she really had a really great partnership with a lot of magazines. Appeared in my first radio show podcast, Rebel Music TV. Okay. Got to shoot again with my favorite photographer, Monique Antoinette, for some Christmas fun. Okay, and then, and last but not least, I found out that I will be the new model for pinup girl clothing. Words can't even sum up what the year meant to me. I worked my ass off, and in the end, it paid off. I'm nowhere near where I want to be in my career, but I'm so grateful for how far I've gotten in only 1 year. I have met some great people this year that have changed my life in a way that I couldn't even dream of. Never did I think I would be part of the revolution of women who are standing up together to say enough and making sure that we are not only heard but seen. Being fat no longer means that you have to be ashamed. It now means that you have to be a fabulous life we recognize for what you are, not what you like. Her vibes really give me like a very Whitney Wade 4 kind of thing. Okay, so that was her first post of 2012 about the recapping 2011, which, okay, that's, and she had a great 2011. I guess that was really, you could say, the beginning of her, virality. And it was more like, it really was more organic virality through just hard work networking in the fashion industry. Which I suspected, because, I mean, her Instagram had a decent following at this time, but it wasn't what she was solely using to get fame. It seems like her blog and just networking with all these people in the indie fashion and modeling scene was what was giving her that leg up. So the next post here, Jessica Louise clothing equals love. Okay, when I was 19 and MySpace was popular, I would waste hours on that site. We all did. It was a great way to connect to people, designers, and brands that otherwise wouldn't have heard of. And that's how I discovered the amazingly talented Jessica Louise. Now here I am, 7 years later, writing a clothing review and modeling for one of my all-time favorite designers. So quickly, I want to say about her blog. So this is what I was talking about. It seems like the posts that really got her famous were kind of being a fashion blogger and blogging about plus-size brands that were helping for people of obviously larger frames that obviously you wouldn't find in the stores or just like on Amazon. So I think her being kind of a plus-size fashion expert was really what the post that got her a lot of attention, and her modeling posts also, of course. But it was really about the clothes and not just her body. It was very fashion-centric, as you can see. So we'll go on here. It's how I discovered Jessica Louise. I have always loved Jessica Louise's designs for a number of reasons, mainly her use of color, ruffles, patterns, and all things girly, which naturally I adore. Only sad part was that I could never wear her delish clothing until she expanded her collection to plus sizes recently. She is the first of my favorite alternative designers that I have caught in the fact, Curry's. I will have to say, I guess it's the TikTok term going so-and-so hits different. Alternative designers of the MySpace and Tumblr era hit different in a way that honestly, I don't even see today. But yeah, so here's her modeling the clothes. Let's see, so she's just doing a review. So, yeah, fashion reviews. Look how happy she looks. Oh my god. Those are all cartoons. So, okay, that's a nice little post for her. Okay, so this next one I find very interesting. It's called Mean Girls. I've been thinking about this topic for a while, but didn't quite know how I wanted to approach it until recently. I stumbled across a website called Stuff No One Told Me and was inspired by the artwork and message. I felt it was mine. Keep in mind, I'm about to say is based on my personal experiences and mere observations. The only thing I'm going to gain from this is that someone will either learn something and change their behaviors or notice their behaviors in a friend and handle it accordingly. As most of you know, I was bullied all throughout school for various reasons, none of which I could control. As I became more confident, I learned that I was pretty fucking fabulous, and to hell with anyone had to say. Well, who would have known that the bullying would follow me into my adult years and take a new form? Mean girls. There are different types of mean girls out there, none of which are better than the other. The friend that thinks it's funny to take low blows at you, pick on other people, and make you feel less than amazing. The boss that belittles you in front of coworkers, but she calls it constructive criticism. The passive-aggressive acquaintances online that make comments to you and think by adding LOL, just saying at the end to help you overlook them being a bitch. No. The teacher that makes an example of you in front of the class repeatedly, i.e. calling you by the wrong name on purpose, mocking you when you have come. Family members that aren't expecting your sexual orientation, fashion, lifestyle choices, and make fun of you in a loving way. Cliques that make it their mission to put others down and make it seem like you should feel lucky to even get a moment of their time. I'm certain we all have experiences this at some point or other, but it's how we handle the situation for that matters. I would be lying if I told you that I'd never been guilty of being a mean girl. I used to think it was funny to make fun of others. I surrounded myself with friends who literally were like leeches and drained all of my positive energy out. Their lives revolved around making fat jokes, picking on me for having a son out of wedlock, and dating boys I met online. You name it, it was all up for grabs. I would laugh along their jokes. Meanwhile, inside, I felt myself getting smaller and smaller. I realized that my awful actions towards others were in direct relation to who I was surrounding myself with. So interesting, and there she admits she was a bully. To be fair, look, I'm not saying it's okay, but I do understand becoming a bully so you don't get bullied yourself. I mean, it's not right, but I mean, I do get it, okay? Because certainly I never would wish anyone to have been in the situation I was actually put in with bullying. And I mean, no, I wish they didn't also join the bully with me, but I understand why they would do it. I know for a fact that mean girls come in all shapes, sizes, ages, race. I know that the only reason they think it's okay to treat others like worthless scraps because they are lacking something in their life, because I was one. Perhaps they don't have a parent that loved them enough. Perhaps, okay, blah, 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 blah. Okay, you get the idea. I mean, this post, you get it, standard. Don't bully people. At the end of the day, I want to know that I contribute in some way to society and made worthwhile connections with people that genuinely care about me and what I can do for them. I hope that you can do it. Okay, so you get it. But interesting, she did admit she was a mean girl. Okay, here we go. Here is another fashion post, it looks like. Yeah, she's just sharing fashionable clothing brands, which is nice. Look and see, these are just very casual pictures of cute stuff. And that's nice. Again, I think that's really what gave her a leg up. And then, of course, that kind of transitioned into the modeling. So, okay, and yeah. Plus size clothing, September sale. Oh, so yeah, it's a sale. She did fashion sales on her blog. Pretty nice. Okay, so now we're in 2013, and okay, so the curvy fashionista turns 4. So this looks like it's a blog post about her attending another networking event for another plus-size fashion blog, which is nice. Summertime tropical trends. Since most of my fans are plus-size babes, it's so important to write about fashion trends that we could incorporate into our lives. There's no reason like Phil we can't be fashion-forward. Look at that. Damn. Okay. I know it's been quite a while since I blogged, but I'm back. Yeah, because at this point, 2013, her Instagram was really beginning to become the main source of her fame, such that she didn't really need the blog anymore. Okay. So she just loving bathing suits. Let's see. Believe it or not, I haven't always embraced my size. 7 years ago and 100 pounds ago before I had my son, I wouldn't have been caught dead in a bathing suit, but less a bikini. Yet, I've put on a good deal of weight, but weight isn't the only thing I've gained. Confidence came with it. It's been such a journey and very eye-opening at that. I went from finding anything and everything, everything when I lived in Seattle to try to pull my fat stomach in. She lived in Seattle. Interesting. Didn't know that. Interesting. Wonder when she moved to LA. Let me tell you, it was, well, you know what, to get off now. I don't even wear shapewear unless I'm shooting and I really need for the garment. It's so refreshing to be able to feel the breeze of my skin. Okay, so again, more loving yourself. Okay, interesting. Okay. This is interesting. The dark side of modeling. Okay. Since I last wrote, I'm another year older and I've been reflecting a lot lately. It's also approaching the 3rd year anniversary when I started modeling professionally. So that means that she started plus-size modeling in 2010. My career has been a blessing, but in some ways a curse. I often wonder if I knew what I know now, would I have done it? And I'm torn. Oh wait, it's cutting off, sorry. Damn, the Wayback Machine isn't giving me that, damn it, I'm gonna have to guess what the cutoff words is. I'm sorry if I can't read this entire post. It's Wayback Machine can be difficult like that. Especially living your life in the public eye is by far the hardest thing I've ever done. You see a different side of people, dark side. People use you to get places. They lie to you, manipulate you, then turn around and love you all in a day. I've lost friends, respect, and countless jobs because of my looks, beliefs, or just plain bad luck. Everyone thinks they know me before judging every move I make constantly. I miss the times I could freely post photos of myself, my son, just my life, without being attacked. Yes, I ignored a lot. For 6 months last year, and part of this year, I was suicidal, and thought every day that there was no way I could go another day. I'm assuming that's saying. I didn't really tell anyone because I was embarrassed. My life looks so glamorous sometimes, and barely able to get out. Oh dear. The internet is in general is breeding a generation of young girls and guys who think their worth is based on their look, like many likes they get. You can see, well, I mean, Tess, that's your career also. I mean, your career is based on how much likes you get. I mean, this is just another be careful the internet and fame kind of cautionary tale. Okay, whatever. Not worth reading. But I mean, her mental health was struggling at this time. I love that mermaid artwork for, by the way. Love that mermaid. Okay. Here we go, her hyping up Domino Dollhouse again. Stripped, learning to love a fat body naked. While packing for my shoot tomorrow, I started playing dress up in my new lingerie from Hips and Curves. I cannot imagine a life without cage bras, like, interesting, okay. Giving away for Benefit Cosmetics. God, the brands that she worked with, oh my god. Okay, so that was a lot. I know that was kind of a lot to go for. Oh my god, those brands, how many brands, photographers, designers, other models, blogs, and magazines, and all that. I'm actually impressed that she got a deal with Inked magazine in 2011. I actually tried to find it. I couldn't find it. Well, she had another deal with Inked magazine in 2021, 10 years later. So when you try to look for SEO, it's like, that's what pops up. But because I think Inked magazine, it still is big nowadays, but it was so big back in the day, Inked. I think because of, shows like Miami Ink and LA Ink with Kat Von D, of course. So, but that's so fun. But so my God, like that's so many people in such a short amount of time. She just went crazy with so many people. Damn, I'm like, wow, blown away. Makes me wonder why she didn't try to be a makeup YouTuber. She could have also been pretty big at the time. She could have been like a Loie Lane kind of person. Now, quickly going back to that 2013 post about her feeling suicidal and the internet and fame is a dark place. I know that kind of sounds a bit like a me. Oh, poor boo-hoo. I feel for her. Look, I think everyone with some following has felt that at one point, even with a small following. I think even you'll feel that way even with 1,000 followers, because it's like, who are you people? What do you want from me? What? I don't know you. I don't know you. What's going on? What's going on? Because these people are very vital to your career, but at the same time, they're just represented by a number on a screen. It's kind of a very weird experience for sure. Now, let's get to the biggest question. How do you go from all of that you just saw to claiming to be an anorexic person at your size when previously your whole brand and identity had evolved from just saying, look, come on, fashion industry, we can be models like me, can be so beautiful in your clothes also, to, well, low-key advocating for a lot of dangerous health beliefs. Like, how? I think, again, from that post and how she felt very lost in her fame, I think to a certain extent, Tess Holliday always believed to be appreciated for her work, to be loved, meant having to, well, perform a stunt to a certain extent. Even though a stunt is a harsh word, because all this, I think, is very authentic to her identity. But still, she knows to the rest of the world it comes off as a stunt, a one-trick pony. And even though that's not how she wants her brand to be seen as, she still has to feed into that in order to keep the brand alive anyway. So, and that is really sad and terrible. And thus, it compels her to subconsciously then do crazier, wackier things until she's claiming to be anorexic. And why do I say that? So, I think the issue with Tess is isn't really being honest with herself about why she wants to continue doing what she does. Once her fame elevated from just being on the plus size fashion scene to, you know, being in the whole lexicon of Instagram celebrities, which is a whole thing in itself, of course, and then, you know, being invited to mainstream red carpet events and all that. And you don't know this, but she had like a walk-on guest role in the show The Bold Types of being on mainstream TV shows. I think Tess isn't really being honest with herself. I think the problem with Tess is she doesn't want to admit to herself that she does in fact get satisfaction and validation from other people's admiration of her. Because she did start off being an advocate for a lot of other people, but as her fame grew, you know, it became not about the Tess Holliday world but that she's in and the community she belongs to. She still claims to belong to those communities, but again, the anorexic thing kind of distanced herself a lot. It's just now about Tess Holliday herself as her own just one brand and all. And I think the problem is with that is she doesn't want to admit she wants to be Tess Holliday, the grand dame of the plus-size modeling industry, because she struggles to admit that she does get satisfaction off being admired purely for herself and only herself. And you know, I don't think that's a bad thing. I don't think it's necessarily being vain or superficial that you get peace and happiness and fulfillment from getting admiration from a bunch of other people. But I think Tess Holliday, she still wants to believe that she is on this mission advocating for so many other great things when that's not who she is anymore as a celebrity. And she has a hard time admitting that. She has a hard time. It's just now about Tess Holliday and her body and, you know, only her body, and her brand is only her body, and everything that she propped herself up with fame, it's a world that's long gone now. And I miss that world. I mean, come on, those clothing items you saw, all those clothes, the designs, I'm like, yeah! I mean, that was a fun time in the fashion world that honestly, I miss. I really do miss it. I think the problem is, though, the mission of just saying, look at my body, I'm so beautiful, fuck all beauty and everything you knew about beauty, is a mission that's very hard to carry on her shoulders, and one she doesn't want to admit she's only adopting for the purpose that she's getting fulfillment off just being admired for her being her. And again, I don't think that's a bad thing. I really don't. I really don't. I think if you're honest about that, it can be healing in a certain way. And that's the thing about healing, why she so desperately wants admiration and validation from her fame. Why? Like, why? So, you saw briefly in a post you saw about her talking about Mean Girls and how she kind of admitted she was a bit one, which is very interesting because later on she would say she was bullied. So, you know, she wrote a book. There is a Goodreads review of her book by someone claiming to be her brother, and it is not nice. It's saying it's full of lies, it's not favorable, she was a nasty person, she is a nasty person, and don't buy a word she said. But then again, and it could be true, but at the same time, we can't be sure it's her brother, and also, I mean, they could be estranged. He could have it out for her. Look, if you talk to my extended family, they would say very unkind things about me, because to them, I'm just grew up as this crazy California hippie who can't do anything according to how it should be done. I mean, that is kind of true, but they're saying that because they grew up at a distance from me. If they knew what my day-to-day life was like, maybe they'd think differently. And look, I don't blame them for thinking that way, because it is kind of true. So I read Tess Holliday's book, and I think it explains why she always felt that to get admiration and validation, appreciation for herself, she had to be performing these crazy stunts, and also why she herself truly does want to be admired and have fame for fulfillment, even through performing those stunts as well, but isn't able to admit it. And that's why then she needs to replace it with getting sympathy, which is why the anorexia diagnosis. Because the sympathy then takes away the fact that she just wants love and admiration for the sake of she just likes it. Which again, I don't think that's a problem. I don't have a problem with that. So just about the book, because the brother claiming it's full of lies. I read through it, and here's what I think. I I read through it and I decided what I think is true and what isn't true. And I think some of it is true and some of it isn't. Just using my own judgment, what's plausible, what she said in other places as well, and just overall, well, just reading through how well things were written and how memories were constructed. So Tess Holliday had a very rough childhood. Her parents did not get along. Her dad was kind of a serial douchebag. He was a womanizer. They weren't financially stable. They moved around a lot. It was not a very happy relationship. Her father was not a very nice person to her, and she had some struggle to fit in. Though in other times she did actually get along fine and make friends, which also, again, you kind of got hinted that she assimilated for wanting in being a mean girl for the sake of keeping friendships. And all that I believe. However, there are some stories that are so over the top that, again, that I simply cannot believe. Like, I don't believe this. Years later, Dad owned a boa constrictor, theatrically named Cleopatra. She was his pride and joy until the day she twisted around his waist and squeezed through his jean belt loops. Suddenly, Dad was in grave danger of being crushed to death by his pet. He whipped out his pocket knife and cut through the belt loops to free himself. Perhaps a normal person would have found a new home for the snake, but not Dad. He turned the knife on the snake and cut her head off, then bitched for weeks about ruining those beloved Tommy Hilfiger jeans. It was a similar fate for a miniature pig that, in turn of events that would surprise absolutely no one, grew too big for its tiny makeshift home in a townhouse pantry and sadly ended up at the butcher. I'm sorry, that's just so over the top and implausible. I do believe her dad mistreated animals, of course, but not in that way. But I think people like Tess are inclined to make up such a crazy story to mask something that isn't too far off from it for maybe the sake of protecting yourself. Because the crazier the story is, then it becomes more of a situation of there's nothing I could have done about it. Who can deal with somebody as crazy as that who cuts heads off snakes? Thus, she would feel less guilty that she wasn't able to take more control of the situation. I think lots of people do that, just so then nobody can say, well, why didn't you do this? Why didn't you do this? The crazier the story is, it's like, well, who can do anything in that situation? Because unfortunately, a lot of kids, even though they know something isn't their fault, still feel that they should have taken some accountability to change the situation at hand. And I think that definitely is something Tess struggles with. Then we get to the part of her mom being assaulted, which I think the story later on changed. I'll have to look for the clip. But here's how she accounted it in her written word. We arrived to the side of my distraught grandma. It was then we learned the true reason for our frantic journey. My mom had been shot at her home. She was in a drug-induced coma following emergency surgery to remove 2 bullets from her brain. The doctors say she would probably won't walk or talk again. Grandma sobbed to my father within our earshot. She could be a vegetable. I wasn't sure what being a vegetable meant. But in the South, they are mostly brown and soggy and come from a can, so I knew it couldn't possibly be good. But Mom wasn't a vegetable. 3 days after the shooting, she woke up. The attack had damaged the left side of her brain, partially paralyzing the right side of her body, but she was able to communicate. She couldn't form her words very clearly, but she seemed to understand what people were saying to her. She still had her long-term memory, but her short-term memory had been affected. It would be a long journey back to learning how to walk and talk again. Still scared for her life, she claimed she didn't know who had attacked her. The detectives on the case had a hunch, though. They were already suspicious of Mom's boyfriend, Tim, who had been the first person on the scene and raised the alarm. Tim claimed that after returning from his job at the furniture factory across the street, he had discovered Mom lying lifeless in the bath with 2 bullet wounds to the back of her head. After making the grim discovery, he ran to the volunteer fire station next door to get help. When the paramedics told him Mom was still breathing, the color drained from his face. While the house had all the hallmarks of a home invasion, a severed phone line and stolen jewelry, it was obvious to the police that the windows had been smashed from the inside. Then there was Mom's reaction when Tim came to the hospital to visit her. What happened to my mom and the fallout from that situation definitely changed me forever. From a young age, I understood that the world could be a dangerous and ugly place. It made me feel that relationships can be toxic, and it influenced the way I view love and friendships. I struggle to make friends and still find it hard to really trust people. When you have been so vulnerable as a child, it is instinctive to put up walls. I'm still working on that. I think Mom knew deep down that Tim was not a very good person. Like my father, Tim had a temper. He once pushed Tad down the stairs in a fit of rage, all because he could not find the television remote control. We told Mom at the time, but she thought we were exaggerating. I think she found it hard to accept that after all she'd been through with Dad, she had chosen another man with a dark side. She is kind and compassionate, but has an innate need to fix people. Again, I do believe that Tess did have to see a bunch of very toxic relationships her mom went through and see her mom almost lose her mom, which is absolutely terrible. Also, the book goes into Tess struggling to fit in because in the many perfect little southern towns she lived in, it was all be perfectly blonde and perfectly beautiful and have expensive brand clothes and all that kind of stuff. And I believe that very much so, because just from other memoirs I've read of people Tess's age growing up in similar situations, oh yes, absolutely. But Tess did say she did manage to make friend groups. She had to really push and force her way and work hard because, of course, being the plus size girl, it was, she had a disadvantage. But she managed to make it work, which I think trained Tess to believe that in order to be accepted, she really had to pull a stunt, really push herself out there, and really just basically force a space for herself, no matter how unpleasant she might make her existence for other people. So I kind of talked over me thinking Tess secretly is having a hard time admitting that she really just loves attention and validation and fulfillment, which I don't think is a bad thing, but if she admitted that, it would make her superficial and would distance herself from, the I'm changing the world and advocating and everything, and all that is a lot of pressure when all she has is just herself to spread that message of body positivity and health at every size and all the other stuff. But I think there's also another thing that is forcing Tess to go and pull this crazy anorexic stunt. And again, it has to do with what I said before about her wanting sympathy, because sympathy for something tragic would take away from feeling that she is unhappy with the image as it is for seemingly very superficial reasons, even though I don't think any of those reasons should be considered superficial. I think Tess is upset maybe that her fame did not have the impact she thought it would. Because if you compare when she was networking with a lot of people, essentially her fame started from a very safe space in the fashion industry where she had lots of people likewise around her. But as her fame grew, as the blog died out and the Instagram became her primary platform, it pushed her into basically the mainstream fashion industry. A mainstream fashion industry that is much scarier than where she started at. Because yes, she was getting known for being a plus-size Instagram model figure, but now she's up there with the rest of the Instagram model figures, with the Instagram body. And now she has to fight the TikTok body, which is so much worse. Oh my god. She's very upset that unlike her early days of fame when she was in this small group, she isn't able to make the same impact that she did beforehand. That she isn't inspiring more people to be like her and show their body proudly in beautiful pictures with elaborate clothes and makeup and everything. Yes, the average American is overweight, but unlike Tess, people are not comfortable with flaunting it like she does. And I think she's upset that, well, she didn't get more people inspired to flaunt it like she does. And you might be thinking, but well, wait a minute, okay, even if that's so, that's still good for her because that's more market share for her of the plus-size community. That means if she's the only one, she doesn't have to share it and the fame is all hers, so her star can keep rising. That may be true, but it gets very lonely at the top. I think she's in this fight, she feels in this fight alone, since she's the biggest plus-size fashion community. Maybe next you could say Virgie Tovar is next, but Virgie Tovar is, basically Virgie Tovar shoots herself in the foot much more often. The other thing is, as I said before, Tess Holliday's name made so many anti-body positivity YouTube channels, from My Thoughts Will Probably Offend You, Kiana Doherty, Swolenormous, Alan Roberts, bodybuilder channels like Greg Doucette, and many smaller channels, of course. I think that's also damaging her because that's something she didn't expect and didn't want to handle. So she didn't inspire more people to do what she does, but her name alone made a bunch of YouTube channels that tear down what she does more. So in a way, to her, it can feel like she's failing. And yes, she is more famous than all the other people I mentioned, but like I said, her name alone makes so many other YouTube channels that pay a lot of money much easier than it makes people who want to go ahead and spread the message she's aligned herself with. That also can be damaging. And again, I think it's a fight that maybe she isn't as ready to be in the trenches with as she wants everyone to believe she is. And I think the anorexia thing is a crutch for being in that trench. Another way to say, you can't attack me, I'm ill. It's really sad that someone who has come off herself so strong really doesn't feel that way and then has to appropriate a serious illness in order to then helpfully use sympathy to feel like some of the pressure of fighting for a more inclusive bodies and all that. But also, I was left wondering, why anorexia of all things? Why? She had to have known people were not going to believe her. She had to have known the channels that she despises were going to run with this and go crazy. I think secretly she resents how all the channels that tore her down, that used her names in videos, that made fun of her, never took her seriously even for a teeny bit, and her mentality is like, fine, they want to make fun of me, I'll give them something. But of course, she can't actually say that because she would then be accidentally validating what they say about her, that she's a stunt person, that she doesn't do anything because she cares about it. And again, I think it's interesting because in a way, claiming she's anorexic now somewhat recaptures the feeling of her early fame. It connects her to a community that is misunderstood, very much like her early days. But the thing is, does anyone really understand Tess Holliday? Does Tess Holliday really understand Tess Holliday? But my message to Tess is, Tess, you work in the fashion industry. The fashion industry changed. Its values changed, and that's fine. But I think Tess Holliday has a very hard time dealing with change, dealing with her evolving self. So she always has to come up with ways to say, this is how I am, this is how I will be, this is how I was, and you just don't understand me.
This really amazing, source online for all these things. And yeah, we've been working together ever since. So everyone watching, this is the amazing person that has helped me name my eating disorder and start on the very long, hard journey to recovery, I guess, or managing it or something. I don't know. Yeah.
There was something that I wanted to ask around the concept of food as medicine, because I'm aware that in certain, I know that this is perhaps more common in inpatient treatment of eating disorders, specific eating disorders like anorexia nervosa, where it's just in terms of the manner in which the eating disorder manifests, the concept of food as medicine is used to help in recovery, by treating food as medicine, by treating food as the thing that is.
So I think firstly, I will say, I very much am of the mindset that all eating disorders are restrictive eating disorders, regardless of the way a human body looks.
To be clear, I never said that a fat person is not able to have anorexia, but it makes no sense somebody who built a brand off loving their plus size body suddenly is like, I actually hated it all along. I'm like, did you actually hate it? I mean, if that's true, then that means you're lying and you don't deserve any of the success you have, or you just start performing another stunt. And since Tess Holliday likes stunts, that's what I lean towards. So, now that we just have that all out of the way. The video Sam at Every Size did a fantastic job kind of poking fun at Anna Sweeney, who is Tess Holliday's dietitian. And I would say one of the people in Tess Holliday's circle that very much back up and validate her claims. So she appears very well connected in the body positive community, and she appears like she knows what she's talking about. I realize she's a very complicated figure. She has an interesting backstory, and I think that backstory that maybe isn't very well known is very influential in her views that align perfectly with Tess Holliday, and thus resulted in the most wacky claim of someone like her having anorexia. My research from Anna Sweeney is from 5 or 6 podcast episodes ranging from 1 to 2 hours with a lot to consume. There could be more podcasts out there, but I'm not sure. I thought I got as much as I could. That's recent and up to date. Anna Sweeney generally is someone who's very open. Okay, so let's go into what I got from Anna Sweeney talking about herself extensively in interviews. Here's what's very interesting about her. Anna Sweeney is someone who's been very open about her life and very much someone who talked about how her early childhood influenced her. What I find very interesting is, for someone who was very open about her life, she's also incredibly vague on it. You know, I would normally insert like audio clips and everything, but because she's so vague and so general with talking about everything, including very harsh topics, it's hard because you don't really get an idea of what she's talking about until you're like a half hour into the episode. Maybe I'll try to get one or two. I think, honestly, the reason why she is so vague on details, the why she's very cryptic and just kind of very foggy, is I think she omitted a lot, because if we knew everything that went on, the audience would draw a very different conclusion than she wants us to. I don't think she's necessarily being deceptive, but also, well, maybe she is, but I also think she's very much trying to take too much control on the narrative of herself that comes off a little bit disingenuous. She starts her childhood off by talking about a very traumatic event that happened. She had to move very suddenly, and this very much uptipped her world, which I think it does for many young people who have to move in childhood. What's interesting is, for someone who said this was a big event that set off and began like a journey of self-realization to the important things in life that she values, that she incorporates in her career, again, the details are very scarce. So she moved at 12 years old from somewhere to the Great Plains of North Dakota. So, are there plains in North Dakota? I don't know. Very nature. Now, the circumstances around this sudden and very horrible move were never said so. She alludes to the fact it was a divorce because she said she was moving with her father. So I wonder if it was a bad divorce or to get away from a toxic parent, because she said, oh, we had to move and I wasn't allowed to tell anyone about it for a long time. Like, huh? What? And then she alludes also to the fact that her and her sister were separated and not living together because she has a sister who it seems like they were estranged in childhood. And even where they were moving from was also kept hush, because later on she would live in Boston later on in childhood after North Dakota. And at first when she talked about it, I thought they were moving from Boston, and then I was like, wait a minute, what? Wait, you're moving to Boston? Well, where was Boston exactly in this kind of thing? The Boston area is where she resides now. So, because she's kind of all over with the timeline. So it's very difficult to kind of get an idea of what actually was happening around this very big event, basically. She just keeps hushed about it, which I was very surprised. Also, she has a family history of being in the medical field. She said both her parents studied medicine in college, though that wasn't their profession, and her grandfather was a doctor. She also said that her sister, which actually she didn't say, sorry, she just hinted her sister had an eating disorder, and her sister was very athletic, and it seemed like she had a lot of jealousy issues with her sister. So, and from her describing her relationships, it seems they were estranged, but again, she didn't say that outright, so I can't entirely be sure. See how like hard it is? It's like when just in talking about certain things, you get an idea, but she never backs up or confirms or says this is what it is. So you're left to draw your own conclusions with really not much to work off of. So the next thing is her medical problem. So she has MS, multiple sclerosis, oh god, I'm sorry butchering that. Multiple sclerosis. The timeline, again, of how that developed was very tricky, because she said she got her diagnosis on it at 15, but also she said at 12 years old she was dealing with a lot of horrible pains that her parents ignored. And it was her doctor grandfather who maybe suggested later on to go see a doctor. But it's strange because if she has a family with a medical background, it's why didn't she get a diagnosis or go see a doctor beforehand? Which maybe they did get her to see a doctor earlier on, but she just didn't say so. So she got the diagnosis. Around the time she got a diagnosis, again, it seems like she contradicts herself, because she says it was hard to live with the disease in the middle of like rural nowhere. But then she also later on says that at 15, when she got the diagnosis, they also moved to Boston. So I'm like, where were you living and what was the situation? It's hard to say. Now, also at 15, when she got her diagnosis, was bad and she had to get a lot of treatment, but she said it wasn't all bad. With a mix of her resiliency and also a very supportive community, high school was actually pretty nice. A lot of people rallied to support her in high school, so she said her popularity boosted, but I'm sure it wasn't just all sympathy. I mean, she definitely said she was going to work to compensate and make sure that she developed a good friend circle and make the best of the situation possible, which worked. So I think that's really nice. And definitely a very rare story when a young child becomes disabled. She also said, again, the idea that she also might be estranged from her mother or not in a good relationship or wasn't having a good relationship with her mother as a child, because she said that her mother kept pushing her to exercise and go to the gym a lot, more than she was willing to. And when she got her diagnosis, her mother kept pushing her to work out to manage the illness, obviously, and also was putting her on a pretty strict, healthy, clean diet, which she said even beforehand of the diagnosis, her family was pretty big on clean eating. And as time went on in teen years, her flares got pretty bad, so she was in and out of the hospital quite a bit. She also says when she got diagnosed, she was in a documentary about disability and activism for young people. I couldn't find that documentary at all. So going on to college, she initially wanted to become a broadcast journalist because she always had a love of media, which I think that's very fascinating. But because of her, obviously, diagnosis, that she couldn't be on camera. No one would accept her being on camera. And she had to transfer colleges to move back in with her parents because, again, the MS, it was very difficult. Then her college career gets a little bit weird and it doesn't make sense because she said she finished college in 2.5 years. So I interpret that as her having an associate's degree. I guess she could have a bachelor's degree if she took like 8 to 10 classes a semester, which, as wacky as that sounds, because you would sleep like 2 hours a night average. I mean, I actually know some people who've done that. Oh my God. But then also, given how she said it was difficult for her to go to college because of her disability, I'm like, does she have a bachelor's or master's degree as a dietitian? Because I kind of think it's an associate's, because an associate's is like 2 years, obviously, if you're like through a community college and everything. Putting down associate's degrees at community college. I went to community college also, but again, the college thing, the timelines and everything else get much more blurry. The other thing is, when she realized broadcast journalism wasn't going to work out, she said she specifically switched to want to become an eating disorder dietitian, which this timeline took place, I think, was like late 90s, 2000s, and that's very specific. I mean, to go from broadcast journalism and not having a personal affiliation with the eating disorder, other than her sister might have struggled with it, her sister she was estranged from, possibly, to say, I want to be an eating disorder dietitian, not eating disorder specialist or psychiatrist, dietitian. How does one come to pick that? I can maybe see kind of coming into that if you like enter the psychology field, then want to go move into like eating disorder concentration and then eating disorder dietitian specifically, because that's like how the medical field is. General medicine, then you kind of pick your practice, but switch from broadcast journalism to eating disorder dietitian without even having finished a bachelor's or gone to like grad school for medicine. I found that very weird. I do remember now she did say that because of the strict exercise and diet regimen she was put on by her mom after her MS diagnosis, she lost weight, which was bad for her. So I forgot to add that in, I'm sorry. That's kind of the end of her early childhood. And then she goes into her experiences. But again, when talking about her professional experiences, I assume after she graduated college, again, she's vague and not specific. She says she worked specifically as an eating disorder dietitian in an inpatient ward. She didn't say which one, but in one of the like podcast descriptions of her, it does say she was at Montanito, one of the Montanito locations. Montanito is like a rehab franchise thing, so they have many locations across the United States. So I guess that's where she worked primarily for a long time. Most of these podcasts are her just talking about her views in general. It's very scant on experiences specifically, or stories of patients, or anything, really. It's just so you don't really know how her treatment plan developed, or what treatment plans were successful, or how she dealt with patients. I just found it was actually honestly hard to listen to all these podcast episodes, because it's like, okay, I get it, but can I get maybe some specific stories, evidence, or show me how it worked and everything? Because you're just basically preaching rainbows and unicorns without really any narrative of how it was effective. effective, basically. Okay, so let's talk about her approaches to food. Health and eating disorder recovery. You could say I think she falls under the umbrella of health at every size. And again, there's videos that break down kind of what that is. Fun. There's a few key points that Anna Sweeney really hounds in. Food as medicine. Your relationship to food is basically the very biggest key to all eating disorder recovery. In fact, there's one line she said that really disturbed me.
And so there is, in some ways, there's kind of a short-lived experience of food being like the medicine, like the primary intervention, and nothing can really happen until you are effectively and adequately nourished. And that is true. Again, that is separate and away from like what body size entirely, or diagnoses, totally separate. And I always get curious with my clients about what it means to view food as medicine versus food as pleasure versus food as a vehicle for connection versus food as, in next chapters of your life, how would you like to interact with food? Because staying in that food is medicine mentality, to me, is not actually and this is one of the reasons for, when somebody's in more intensive treatment, food can be medicine because you're not really doing a heck of a lot around relationship with food. But when someone is in a position to actually be curious about their relationship to food, then the food is medicine dogma leaves in my book.
That is honestly really...
Yeah, you can kind of see my issue is that she tends to overgeneralize everything. And I think her overgeneralization is the fact that she is not a psychiatrist. She didn't go to grad school for it. So I think her knowledge is limited. And, not necessarily that you need to get a PhD to even talk about it, but it seems like the whole psychiatric part of eating disorders are completely left out. Like, it's when I was listening to these podcasts, I wanted to shout at her and said, not all eating disorders start from purely a body image issue. It's something underlying, and the body image issue is the symptom of it. But to say all eating disorders are simply because a girl looked at a model and wants to be thin, that's a very dangerous rhetoric, So that's a big key point. Relationship to food is the first and pretty much the only step. So, because she says food as medicine. Like, food is medicine, food is medicine, food is medicine. She actually said that her practice specifically on eating disorder recovery is breaking up with diet culture. So you got a little bit of Virgie Tovar thrown in there. And I'm like, but diet culture and diet weight loss ads are not a reason for a lot of people who have eating disorders. So what about them? Which again, if she worked in an inpatient clinic, wouldn't she need to know all of the causes? So again, what was her job there exactly? She also says that healthy eating is a rhetoric that needs to go out because it's very ableist. Because what if a person can't chop vegetables and all? And that basically food being nothing but pleasurable is a huge key to being emotionally stable and hopefully helping to cure an eating disorder. But like I said, she just thinks all eating disorders are from just people wanting to diet too much to be thin. She even made out that the dieting her mom made her go on for her MS caused her very bad depression, which, yeah, I think that could have been the case. I do believe that. But I also wonder if her disability caused her more depression than she was willing to admit, even if she was very resilient and didn't let it stop her from having a very thriving high school and college career. And again, she spins off to just kind of taking general jabs at the diet industry. And okay, you know what? Her criticisms are fair. There's a lot of issues with that. Even the Tess Holliday critics acknowledge that 100%. But again, how much of that is really affecting the patients she claims to care so much about? Like, I think she gets a little petty. She's like, she hates Mark Hyman. Like, she's like, she was like, he sells detox supplements. I hate how he uses the word detox, because detox is not a thing. And then she's like, yeah, he might just use it for marketing purposes and doesn't really mean it, but I still hate it. And his supplements are so expensive. That is so ableist, exclusionary. And okay, look, that I guess you could say that's fair criticism, but in the case of people dying of anorexia, is that really the most important thing? Really? Really? Is that what you want to talk to your patients about? Really? Her views are any weight loss intentional is bad. Thinness can only be good if it happens to be an outcome of whatever they need to recover, whatever eating habits a person develops to have a healthier relationship with food. To her, apparently, well, she didn't say so, but it seems to her fat is never going to have a negative health effect at all. In her world, I think she thinks that everyone with anorexia wants to look like the fitness influencer Anlela Sagra, who's been criticized for reducing her body fat to too much, that she doesn't look good and this is bad for her body. And that Anlela Sagra is basically the poster child for what causes an eating disorder, which, again, that's very specific. And again, I think just is more speaking to her personal experiences that she's projecting rather than what actually is happening in the world, which you'd think if she worked in an inpatient eating disorder section of a hospital, she'd know more. She gave a story about how she cut off contact with personal trainers because they were trying to tell her what to eat. And I'm like, well, what's the point of going to a personal trainer anyway? I think, honestly, her advocacy for food as medicine, seeing food as healing and making sure it's not the enemy as people with eating disorders might think it is, it may be fine, but I think her branding of it tends to eroticize food a lot, which I think also is an unhealthy relationship. This is a quick side note, but one of the podcasts she was on, the podcast host, Joshua Woolrich, had a bit of a scandal with being a hypocrite, and he was written up in the Daily Mail, and they joked about it. But Joshua Woolrich is a medical student who runs a podcast, and he's very much advocate of like health at every size, and he was criticized for being hypocritical because he lost weight. There was a Daily Mail article on him. When he started the podcast and inviting people like Anna Sweeney and other body positive activists, he was just seen as being hypocritical considering he once lost weight because he was overweight and it was unhealthy. There's another podcast she interviewed with where she, again, I think this one really actually sums up her views on food very well. And this podcast, I actually encountered the podcast host before, Virginia Soul Smith. I'm actually disappointed because Virginia Soul Smith is a very esteemed journalist. She has been very big in the literary journalism scene for quite a while, and she got fame for actually, ironically, scam busting. She did a Harper's article on the scam of Mary Kay. And I liked her article a lot. I really did. So I was kind of disappointed. So this is like a transcription of the podcast that Anna is talking. Anna, I think hunger and fullness and eating in accordance to those sensory-specific experiences is something that takes skill and practice. That being said, I think my first question to the person would be, are you having enough food all day long? Like when you get up in the morning, are you having breakfast? Are you having snacks? Are you having regular meals? Are you feeding yourself with food when you feel tired instead of having a cup of coffee? And are you actually feeling satisfied by the foods that you've eaten? If you are not, I'm going to encourage you to eat more food and to eat more food that leaves you feeling satisfied at the end. For some of my clients, that actually means taking a break from high fiber things if fullness is part of the equation or something that makes them feel uncomfortable. The most important thing is, are you actually eating enough food during the day? And I promise you, you need a lot more food than you believe that you do. You just need more food. Taking a break there, you need a lot more food than you think you do. No, you're full. If you don't think, you don't think. I mean, okay, so this is then Virginia talking. Also, feeling the need to eat past fullness can either not quite understand what fullness is. You may be sort of feeling you should be full, but you're not actually full. You just think you've eaten too much. And so you think you're eating past this, but you're not actually eating past your own fullness. That comes up quite a lot, I would imagine. Anna, I also want to say really, really, really clearly, your fullness is different from my fullness, and your fullness on Monday in the morning is different from your fullness on Tuesday in the afternoon. We have to really regard our relationship with our stomach similarly to the way we regard our relationship with our bladder. They're both strictly muscles. Sometimes you really have to pee. Sometimes you're like, I need to pee because I'm going to be in the car for a while, and your stomach can be the same way. I really did not get that. Your stomach knows it's going to be full based on other circumstances. I'm sorry, I literally didn't understand that. What I can't. In regards to this question, I would totally experiment with a bunch of different foods and feeling through what feels more filling and what feels more satisfying. And I'm still coming back to you're probably not eating enough during the day. See, that to me is just like eroticizing a relationship with food, which is so dangerous. It's what those Carl's Jr.'s ads did. But here's what I really think is going on. Listen to this.
But it is quite an interesting, living in a disabled body is a really interesting It's a really interesting thing. And I also am so keenly aware of the ways in which my intersectional privilege makes disability so much easier for me.
Mm-hmm. Yes.
Like, I am protected from being harassed.
See, I think what Anna really enjoys is the sympathy aspect of it. I think she really advocates for making sure an eating disorder patient is feeling sorry for themselves as a way to be kinder to themselves and hopefully get other people to be kinder to them as well. And that's kind of under the banner of disability acceptance, because she said how, the sympathy she got in high school for her diagnosis helped her a lot socially, and she definitely used that to boost her social status, of course, with her own good personality as well. And I think in a way she's just trying to make other people do that as well through eating disorders. Because yes, people do feel sorry for people with eating disorders. People do think, oh, poor girl, you have body image issues, but you're beautiful the way you are. And that's the weird thing about this whole then, let's even say that, okay, attacking self-esteem or low self-esteem is a real mission apart from the actual eating disorder. Okay, that's not a bad thing. But the thing is, even though she at one point said she's not big on magical thinking, it seems like just her whole loving food is kind of a version of that magical thinking in a way. The Secret, but in the culinary way, which I think is, again, very dangerous. Not only that, but to get sympathy and feel kinder to yourself and use it to get other people to feel kinder to you. She talks so much about how bigger people are marginalized from the eating disorder space when getting diagnosed and everything, which, yeah, you could say that is true. And she talks about being a minority and, being acceptance for the minority and all that, and people acknowledging that this is extremely different. They need to understand and be able to work with that. I think the accidental outcome of that is very dangerous, because I think she heavily is tokenizing the demographic she's targeting. That's dangerous, because then she's advocating for being a model minority so you appear like the good little person who's worth attention. And that's very dangerous. That really is, because then that's boxing your behavior to behaving a certain way that's going to be able to get people attention and take you seriously without necessarily the proper parameters that are used, just like what Tess Holliday has done. So overall, I do think she's dangerous. I think she's a huge problem. She has very good intentions. I think the intentions behind her message are very important, but I think she doesn't realize how much she gets in the way of her own message with rhetoric that is coming from a very different place than she realizes. Okay, so now we're getting to the fun part of the video, reacting to her content. So I'm aiming for her Instagram, which her long captions next to like inspirational quotes and screenshots of her famous tweets. So this is her very first time she delved into the eating disorder topic on her Instagram, which was in June 2017. Your body is wise, your body is to be trusted, your body is not the problem to be fixed. Most of us come into this planet knowing how to eat. Diet culture and its insidious nature robs us of this intuitive knowledge. We learn other people's ideas of what is good and bad or right or wrong and stop listening to ourselves. That's how all humanity works. Nobody is born knowing what's right and wrong. You learn it. That's everything. We don't need to stay there. Unlearning the message that don't serve us is possible. Your body is wise, your body is to be trusted, your body is not the problem to be fixed. What do you need to unlearn? Who will be your unteachers? By that logic, are we just going to stay on baby formula all of our life? We instinctively want baby formula. No, we learn to eat solid foods. I have so much gratitude for the work that I do, for the gift of being able to work with brilliant, strong, persistent humans, for having the ability to confidently say that healing, recovery, and genuine food peace are attainable. Diet culture is here, but so are we. Recognize the message that disconnects you from your own wisdom, that insists that there is one way to eat more or be. This simply is bullshit. There are a billion ways to be well, and yours will look differently from mine, and from that of your neighbor and best friend, and that is okay and important. Okay, but like someone with an eating disorder, how is their way of being well? Like, again, it just seems like you're telling if someone with an eating disorder, you can be, it seems like you're telling someone with an eating disorder, you can be well. Okay, well then, How? Okay, that's not really inspirational. I've been speaking with more clients about the reasons we get stuck in patterns of thoughts that don't serve our true, healthy selves. Maybe you're stuck in a pattern of comparison that doesn't allow you to freely enjoy your experiences. Perhaps you're living with a false belief that your body changed and wasn't such a problem. You'd find the happiness you've been seeking. Our bodies are miraculous. They can do amazing things. And it is your right to enjoy yours. I swear with these people, bodies need a separate ID. They need a separate passport and ID. Oh, okay, so here's her license and certification. Anna Sweeney, MS, RD, LDN, CEDRD, has satisfied the association's requirements and is hereby granted the designation of IADP approved supervisor. What is this? National Association Eating Disorder Professional Foundation. So she has a certificate from a foundation, but no degree. Okay. Okay. See, I find posts like this hypocritical. The view through my straw hat, same tree, different perspective. I have alternatively new appreciation for longer vacations. I'm rested, rejuvenated, ready to get back to my clients to begin to share my disability narrative. This was the easiest trip yet. I allow people to help without asking for it. My tree is not the same as it once was, but thankfully my perspective of it isn't the same either. But she also said that relationship with food is the one-all step to helping with eating disorders. So she's like, oh, mine is different from yours, but then her treatment plan in the podcast, she's like, oh, relationship with food is everything. Well, that's a one-size-fits-all approach to something you're saying, oh, don't think of one-size-fits-all. Working through eating disorder recovery is hard work. I remind my clients that things often need to feel worse before they feel better. In fact, the things that feel most difficult are usually pointers to precisely what needs to happen. This can be an exhausting process and certainly a process which requires support, curiosity, and dedication. If you're tired, take a rest. Don't quit, difficult as this journey is. See, I'm kind of a little wary of calling something a journey because journey implies accomplishment, and that's the same narrative as an eating disorder of having a goal weight to get down to, an accomplishment. It's interesting, again, this is about blaming diet culture. So she thinks diet culture is the cause of all eating disorders, but then that contradicts her whole, my narrative, my story isn't the same as yours, one size doesn't fit all, everyone is different. So you're acting like everyone gets the same cause of eating disorder while you're saying, but everyone's different. No, you can't have it both ways. Your body does not need to be fixed. It needs to be respected. Body respect might look differently for you than it does for me, but I think it includes several universal qualities. Body respect means listening to your body. It means getting really quiet and setting it to try to understand what your body's communicating. Are you hungry? Are you tired? Are you feeling sad? Why do you need to ask yourself this? Like, are you bored? Are you sore? I mean, you can be confused about a lot of feelings, but I think not many people get confused about these things. Body respect means retaining from talking shit even when you're feeling frustrated with your body, or are annoyed that your clothing doesn't fit, or when you feel your body is broken. Body respect means giving you permission to struggle with body. Body respect means giving yourself permission to struggle with body respect. But up here in this earlier, she's like, body respect means don't talk shit. But then in the next paragraph, body respect means giving yourself permission to struggle with body respect so you can talk shit. What the hell? Again, why are you treating your body differently than you? Like it's a separate entity. That's the same narrative of eating disorder, that it's like a separate friend whispering in your ear. Keep your food opinions to yourself. Don't eat gluten, don't drink milk, sending your money to cleanse, which is totally silly because liver and kidneys. You're right, but please keep it to yourself. But all she talked about was food. Food was all she talked about in those podcasts. To be fair, I think those podcast episodes were much later. I think most of them were in 2022, and this is 2017. But still, it's a little strange that evolution. Even on hardest days, there is more right with us than there is wrong. I'm finding that recognizing and owning many privileges is open to disclose personal information with other humans. I'm fortunate to be able to surround myself with humans who care deeply for me. It seems like the only reason she likes talking about eating disorders is to get people to care for her and her clients. Again, the sympathy milking. Okay, so here's another example. We don't call the ocean bad for its powers and strength. We don't call it bad when it's scary. We acknowledge and respect the power. Under the surface, the ocean is still. It literally calms and cools and regulates our planet. There will be times when you might relate your body as you might the ocean, but remember that deep down, the ocean is stable. I'm sorry, okay. No, the ocean is not stable deep down. There's volcanoes and stuff. And look, she has MS. She said she had bad flare-ups that left her on the floor. She needed treatment for that. There's nothing wrong with that. There's nothing wrong with saying my body needs renovation and upgrades. Our houses need renovation and upgrades. Are we just going to let houses? I'm just kind of using the same weird analogies as her, because why not? Here, Paleo Island, I'm not sure where to laugh or cry. Whole Foods has embraced diet culture with creative tropical display. You don't have to buy that. No one's saying you have to buy that. Oh, are you shaming people who want to buy that? Okay, I thought you're not supposed to shame people for what they want to eat. I mean, I do agree with her that detox supplements suck, but again, no one's forcing you to buy that stuff. And hey, you say all foods are good foods, so I mean, if people want to take detox supplements because it makes them feel better, then let them. What I'm not about is celebrating the temporary side effects of dieting and obsessive exercise. It is possible to feel body positive in most any body the body owner feels aligned with. Whether you feel at home in your body or not, I wish you endless body peace. Okay, so someone with severe anorexia who's underweight, whose kidneys are failing, they feel at peace with their body. Are you going to say, okay, yep, you're fine? But what is real food anyway? I'm having a conversation with my clients about this very topic. There seems to be a general sense that real food is food and they've grown themselves. It's close to earth. I'm happy to say that all food labeled for human consumption is in fact real. I'm talking about Doritos in the same way I'm talking about carrots. Are all disabilities real, Anna? Tell me, is your MS the same as somebody who sprains their ankle? Even though you're not thinking about it, your body's doing amazing things at this very moment. You can do amazing things in your body no matter your shape or size, the ability or disability. I mean, it's nice that she wants to be optimistic, but I kind of think she's being a little toxically positive. If your actions don't align with your values, reconsider your next move. When was the last time you considered the things that are important to you? In my experience, eating disorders and eating disorder behavior don't align with clients' values. Simple recognition that their diet or disorder does not line up with values that can help someone make a different decision. So what are eating disorder values, Anna? Tell us. Is it all just liking paleo too much? Okay, again, this is like, I don't want to read all this because, God, it's the same stuff. But she takes intuitive eating, the idea, to like a whole new level where basically it's just nothing but listen to your body. Your body tells you intuitive eating, eat whatever you want. And if you're eating to make yourself happy and your body happy as if it's a separate entity, you'll be fine. But the problem is, she's basically asking you to listen to a subconscious that doesn't really exist, or if it does exist, it's not really defined what it is and what it says. So you're just going to think yourself in circles, which honestly to me would just make me more anxious, but I guess maybe to other people it won't. Comparison is the thief of joy and energy and passion and life. Comparison is often at the root of the decision to start a diet to follow someone else's rules about food. What if it's a custom meal plan for you? Then is it rules about their rules about food or yours? I mean, yeah, some people scam it like Brittany Dawn, but okay. Did you know that every body processes food differently? That you absorb more or less nutrient content from food you eat than the person sitting next to you who is eating the same thing? That a portion size nutrition label are less important than you might think because calories are now labeled everywhere. We need to get better at choosing where to put our attention. But you also are telling people, eat whatever you want, whichever, whatever, and everything, instead of actually getting to know what food is going to be good for them. So you contradict yourself. Your relationship with food is much more important than what you actually eat. See, that encapsulates everything she's about so perfectly. Oh my God. Much more than we actually... Shouldn't what you actually eat reflect your relationship with food? There really should not be a difference between the two. With posts like these, again, it's a screed against negative body talk. But the thing is, any sense of self-regulating yourself, she says, is negative body talk. Like, what if you enjoy sports and you want to be fit for sports and you want to skip out on a brownie? Is that negative body talk? And she also says what you eat is not your business, but then she's like, no, you can't talk negatively about any food. It's kind of getting in people's food business, honestly. How many times have you felt the urge to compensate after you ate something your ED considers bad? This holiday weekend, wait a minute, if you're listening to your body and your body's saying if food is bad, shouldn't you not eat it? How is that an eating disorder then? Hold on. Again, the whole listening to your body thing is so broad, it can just mean anything and everything. What can I say? I'm really protective of my own food experience and the experience of people around me, and I'm really over people talking shit about food. All food is good food. Talking about food in a moralistic fashion is so 2017. Let's move on. That's all she does is talk about food in a moralistic fashion. That's been so much of the last posts. Ask yourself about your learned food or body beliefs. Make a list of them. When did you acquire the learned beliefs or knowledge that you're focusing on? Was it last month, last year? How did this belief or idea serve you when it first began? How did this belief serve you? Does every little thing you think have to come from a completely separate entity like a parasite? I mean, what's shocking to me is, it's fine to have changing views about food over the years, but it seems like she wants you to go back and think, nope, that was wrong. Nope, you were wrong. You have to acknowledge that and move on. I mean, all of these posts are about healthy relationship with food and everything and your body, but eating disorders stem from unhealthy relationships outside of your own body, so what about that? Well, she's not a psychiatrist, so she wouldn't know. Food rules suck, so we're back to this. So you get where she's gonna go, I don't need to rate this, but my question for her is, if all your body's instinctual in what it should eat, and then it's imposing these food rules, wouldn't those food rules be natural and what you should follow? Like, where does this disordered eating begin if your body is purely instinctual on what it should and should not eat? But then that means an eating disorder should be natural by her logic. Well, you get the idea. I don't know if I should go more into her Instagram. Pretty much the rest, you just saw where it stemmed from. Anyway, I hope you enjoyed this video. A lot of you have asked me for Tess Holliday content, so maybe I can try to do more. I'll see what I can do. Take care. With her brand did not start off with the health at every size thing she was known for from about 2018 to 2020 or 21-ish, when she was kind of going along those kinds of guidelines with that community. She just started off as like a plus size fashion blogger and later model. But then she saw the health at every size movement and slowly aligned herself with that community because it was close to what her brand was about, and it gave her access to a whole new audience who I think was in desperate need of a figurehead who could be a little bit more in the mainstream. Because, as I said, Tess was very good at fashion and networking within the fashion community. First in the indie fashion community, and then getting sponsorships, which made her a bona fide influencer, which got mainstream recognition as, the influencers began to be taken more seriously. Appropriating or aligning or whatever you want to call it with the health at every size community worked very well for her because it combined two different audiences that didn't mix. The body positive, I want cute clothes for not skinny models kind of fashion industry, and the people who were hardcore activists trying to dismantle everything people know about health and wellness that had been given over the last few decades or century. And those two alignments worked so well together. I mean, she walked to New York Fashion Week and her magazine covers. Well, she was getting magazine covers before, even in the early days, but like bigger magazine covers. I think she saw that. So then I think when it came to wanting to elevate her brand further, and yes, I think the anorexia diagnosis was all about just elevating her brand completely, very narcissistic. She thought, well, the health at every size community, which is a very, you could say, medically complex analysis of everything to do with health in the body, or it can be on a deeper level, but at the very surface, it's, just about more acceptance. She saw how well that worked for her and thought, well, since that worked it was so well for me, and health at every size was something that people really wanted to see me be a part of, then why not now the eating disorder community as well? Because I've gotten so much hate and so much accusation, and since I'm kind of already part of this mental wellness space because body acceptance and self-image is part of mental wellness, anorexia can be a whole new platform essentially to be a part of, because then she isn't just getting the people who are into mainstream fashion or all about looks, she's getting into another community completely all about the mental stigma around image and the very serious personal trauma. So access to a whole new community that just being a model on Instagram doesn't typically grant you permission to be a part of. And in a way, it worked
and it backfired. And of course, she got a lot of hate for it. I think she knew she was going to get a lot of hate for it. But it was from the same people who already were giving her a lot of hate. So I don't think she really cared. But I also think she's upset that the whole anorexia identity did not work for her as well as she hoped for, like the Health at Every Size community. Because, again, she just doesn't understand it. Because, again, it's all about what these communities can do for her, not what she can do for these communities. She just happened to have the right brand image that the Health at Every Size community needed to be taken more seriously. And she thought, why not anorexia also? Why? Why not? I was an alternate voice for Health at Every Size community, different than the figureheads they typically had, such as, well, Virgie Tovar, which, oh God, she's a complete mess there. So why not anorexia? I can be an alternate figure for the anorexia community, and I can alter the image of the anorexia community as well and what anorexia looks like, and then be taken again more seriously as a model different than what people have seen when it comes to rethinking everything you know about beauty and beauty standards and beauty society. But anorexia is so much more complex than the Health at Every Size community. I mean, the Health at Every Size community, for the deepest activists like Lindo Bacon, it can be complex. But also, anorexia is so much more serious and is something that comes from such very, 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 very serious trauma that really can have nothing to do with body image at all, period. But of course, Tess really wouldn't care about that. So there were a lot of people cheering her on like she wanted. A lot of people saying, yes, please redefine what it means to look like someone who has an eating disorder, which, yes. But again, it didn't elevate her to a new level of fame and respect than she already had. And I think that really upset her. So she kind of then went quiet about it for a while. And then she brought it up here and there a little bit now and then. You just eating disorder, I'm alternate, you can be fat and have anorexia, blah, 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 blah. Okay. And of course she had lengthy videos debunking this. And now she's brought it up again. And she's brought it up in what I think is the most narcissistic way possible. So now let's go into the drama is she did a stitch with a TikTok of Gwyneth Paltrow in an interview, and Gwyneth Paltrow is talking about a diet, which Gwyneth Paltrow, even before Tess came into the picture, Gwyneth Paltrow was already making the news for this diet being very scary, that it's very much sounds like an eating disorder, which, by the way, yes, it does. So I'm not here to defend Gwyneth Paltrow at all. I think there are so many more things you could rip her apart for, and she has been ripped apart for them. So this is not an endorsement or defense of Gwyneth Paltrow at all. So Tess stitches it with the most narcissistic tangent I've ever seen her do. And I think TikTok is a bit of a dangerous tool for her because she's talking, not just posing. Because again, the more she talks, the more she does herself in. So I'll play the TikTok now.
Coffee, but I really like soup for lunch. I have bone broth for lunch a lot.
You know, what I find most mental about this is that we've known for years that she's okay with glorifying her eating disorder. And I'm not judging because I have an eating disorder. Bone broth is not a suitable meal. And then to end your day with just eating vegetables, but yet people continue to give her airtime, to give her a platform, to take her advice because everyone is too afraid to be fat. I was at a big fancy Hollywood event years ago, and Gwyneth Paltrow was there, or as she had everyone refer to her as GP. And she was at a table with Rachel Zoe, and I'm not going to get too deep into Rachel Zoe, but I have my own opinions. And it was a seated dinner, and we had a set course, a set meal. And she loudly had to let everyone know in this very tiny room with Natalie Portman, Catherine O'Hara, you name it, they were there, that her and her table, which were a handful of her close friends, as she said, that they were going to have something different. Pizza, but not just any pizza, cauliflower crust pizza with no cheese. And I'm not shading anyone that likes cauliflower pizza. Go on, do your thing. But everyone just laughed like it was no big deal. And I'm not here to judge what people put in their bodies, especially as someone that has a restrictive eating disorder. And I get mocked all the time because I'm fat. So how dare I talk about not feeding my body, right? But this shit isn't normal. And it's affecting a whole other generation of young folks who think that eating like GP is appropriate, is okay. And I'm not saying that I have all the answers and I have it figured out, because I sure the hell don't. But with all the talk about Ozempic and all these other weight loss drugs, it's exhausting. It is okay to feed your body. Carbs are not the devil. Fat isn't bad. And I mean fat in your food and fat on your body. It's not bad. But hey, anything for $1, anything for the cost of people's mental health.
And let's just say, she does say that, I wasn't making fun of her or judging Gwyneth Paltrow. Yes, she was absolutely doing that. She was 100% just unfairly destroying Gwyneth Paltrow. And again, I'm not endorsing Gwyneth Paltrow at all. Please, please, please. This isn't like a defense of Gwyneth Paltrow. And then Tess does everything that she in the past has said you shouldn't do. She was making fun of what Gwyneth Paltrow eats. She was beside being like, ew, she was all making a show of this. Oh God, how terrible. Oh God, she's so narcissistic and all. She was then making this all about her. I have an eating disorder. Gwyneth Paltrow is a bad influence. Well, yes, Gwyneth Paltrow is a bad influence and Goop is a bad influence, but not for the reason that Tess was saying. And she's like, oh dear, like, this could be so triggering. This is so a tangent against me, really. It's so a diatribe against me. Oh my God. And like, I cannot believe she just made this whole thing about herself and how what Gwyneth Paltrow wants to do is just upsetting to people like her, because everyone needs to pay attention to what I have to say about anorexia and nobody else. Now, okay, but that is like the least of the issue with this TikTok. That's just the first and most foremost thing. For someone who is all about body positive, spreading love, caring, F your beauty standards, don't care about what other people eat and all, she says she has anorexia. She should have been the most empathetic about it, because she herself has been saying, oh, nobody understands me and eating disorders. Nobody believes me. I'm mocked and judged and hated and criticized because I say I have anorexia, and people are like, you're too fat to have anorexia. You can't be the case. What's wrong with you? And then she goes and makes fun of another woman who she thinks has anorexia also. And like, shouldn't she be the most empathetic to Gwyneth Paltrow? Shouldn't she be the one to say, instead of saying, ugh, disgusting, look at her, how dare she makes a show of this, be like, oh dear, I hope she gets help. I hope she gets better. We should have a better conversation about this. Because she says she wanted to be a voice for the eating disorder community and show it doesn't have to be look one way. Well, when it looks another way, oh, that's different than her. Oh dear, no. Oh no, we can't have that. No, because then it's taking away attention from her. Oh dear. And it just really shows Tess never cared about helping other people, like she said. Just helping other people and helped her brand. And to be very clear, I think even if she doesn't want to help other people, it's fine. Look, it's your life. You can do what you want with it. And hell, I do think her being famous on Instagram did help in a lot of ways, because I am body positive. I think body positivity is a good thing. I think size diversity is extremely important. I think if you want to be obese and, show yourself on Instagram and be an influencer, great for you. And I think Tess did break barriers in a lot of ways. The problem is that it just doesn't ever seem to be enough for her. It just never is. It's more and more and more. And then she has to get more over the top and then deflect criticism by milking as much sympathy as possible. But she can't even milk sympathy for the anorexia anymore, because nobody really cares, even the people who are genuinely concerned and want to change the face of what anorexia looks like. So then she has to go attacking other people who she thinks has, and says, that person's bad, evil, because she has anorexia. Look, see, I have anorexia, but I'm good. It's so shocking that she thinks this is okay. My God, I cannot believe that she didn't think about this a little bit. And honestly, it could have been a really good chance to open the dialogue about how to address someone with anorexia, how to properly come to terms with it, because apparently it was a journey for her. And yet, no. So I honestly wonder if she's ever going to give this up, or if this is something she's going to keep on writing until people finally take her seriously on it or pretend to take her seriously, or will she just jump to something else? What could possibly be next for her? It's just so upsetting, again, that she thought she was being an anorexia activist, but all this was just me, pay attention to me. I'm upset someone else appears anorexic. That takes attention away from me, and I can show you that I know what anorexia is by mocking someone else that I think has it. Like, oh my God. The other thing is maybe one more question to consider. Of all the illnesses she could have appropriated to gain a new audience, why anorexia? I think in a lot of ways, before social media, we only knew about anorexia through like scary documentaries and like news segments that were just like flashing a picture and like, oh my God, this person wanted to be so thin, they stopped eating. But when people like Amberlynn Reed, Nico Cotto Avocado, Eugenia Cooney, and other such like people came onto the scene, we started to see people with eating disorders just operating in their daily lives, and became a bit of a fascination with that, because it is weird to see, because of a lot of our preconceived notions, people who don't have what are deemed to be normal bodies living seemingly normal or not so normal lives. And then we start to generate curiosity around the lives around them. Can they live normal lives? Can they not? What would a normal life look like to someone with that kind of body? I mean, that's why people sit through Amberlynn Reed's long streams and donate her so much money. You could argue that fascination is for better or for worse, but I think Tess saw a lot of that fascination and thought, I need that so I can monetize it. Before I go into it, because when I was going over my notes, I realized that I do sound very judgmental to people who are into alternative health and lifestyle. And I want to be very clear. I have no problem with alternative medicine and holistic health and all that other stuff. I definitely think it can help. Want to clarify, it's my opinion. I do think here in the United States, we are a bit of a pill-happy society, and we over-rely on pharmaceuticals to solve every damn problem that could be fixed with just a good, healthy lifestyle adjustment and maybe some different kinds of medicine that don't get enough attention. So I do think alternative medicine that can be sometimes seen as wacky and crazy can be a very good thing. So again, alternative medicine is not always a bad thing, but there is a place in the world for it. And I understand that a healthy lifestyle, it is political, and the Health at Every Size movement makes it political in the wrong way. But it's sad it has to be political because it really factors into socioeconomic class and many other various lifestyle factors that are out of people's control and are a matter of privilege and fairness, which also, incidentally enough, the article I'll be reading from does touch up upon that. So Gwyneth Paltrow had a Goop cruise, and the internet just went ahead and mocked it. This is coming off the heels of her recent scandal, the one which a TikTok of her talking about her diet routine went viral, and then Tess Holliday made it more viral by completely trashing her on it. It's interesting because the internet is a little bit divided on it, because a good portion of commentators have said that the whole spiel about Gwyneth Paltrow and her diet was completely taken out of context. She was discussing her wellness routine, not her daily diet. So the foods she listed she ate were not meant to be taken as the sole foods she eats throughout the days, just the foods specifically to what is wellness. Which, okay, I don't really agree with that, but I do see where they come from, and I do admit that could be true. It is possible. But I mean, well, first of all, shouldn't just all food you eat be about wellness? I mean, why do we have to have wellness foods and not wellness foods? But okay, that's just a whole other thing that I won't go into, and just speaks to how the word wellness has become so abused and divided. It's like, are we speaking the same language here? Are we all speaking English? Me personally, I do believe that those undernutrient foods Gwyneth Paltrow listed off were either the sole or main thing she eats throughout most of her days. Because why? I've been around so many rich people who are so into the goop lifestyle, and that's definitely what they go by. They definitely damage themselves with these very weird diets that are supposed to be so healthier than thou, which is, of course, really holier than thou. But those are just my personal experiences. So, again, I totally get why people could completely disagree with that. So, that being said, the next Gwyneth Paltrow stunt is the Goop Cruise, which isn't really a cruise right off the bat. It's just a deal she set up with the cruise line where you can pay for an extra Goop experience. So you're just going to a normal cruise and then just getting like extra stuff on top of it if you're doing the Goop section of it. So that's just to be clear, because although I do believe she would be the kind of person that would do an actual cruise, like get her own cruise ship, this really isn't a whole lot. But a journalist for Harper's Bazaar went ahead and embarked on the Goop Cruise experience and wrote extensively about it. And I found the article very interesting. I overall like it. I do have one issue with it. The issue is the journalist was touching upon kind of the underlying psychological draw to Gwyneth Paltrow's offerings with Goop and why people really like it beyond just, oh, of course what she's saying is scientifically correct. Of course it makes total sense. Like, no, what's the real reason? And in doing that, it's no secret that the people drawn to Goop are very wealthy. This journalist kind of mocked these wealthy people to a point where it was unnecessary, where I felt like space in the article was just being wasted. I mean, yes, it's fun to make fun of what extremely rich people do. It's what the TikToker Shabazz says does all the time. But I thought that it just went a little too far, such that more writing space could have been devoted to why do people really like this? What are they really getting out of it then? Oh, yes, this is the most healthy, amazing fountain of youth I've discovered and can afford. So there's just that. I was just like, okay, it's getting a little bit old. Yes, I know the majority of people on these cruises are typical New Yorkers with too much time and money on their hands, but okay, enough, I get it. It's interesting because let's now dive into what the Goop experience really is like. So here I'll just read from the first passage. Each Goop at Sea guest was also given an allotment of special smoothies, one per day, $6 over 9 days, collectible by showing the Goop sticker on your key card at the Spa Cafe and Juice Bar on deck 15 at particular hours. And oh, sorry for the screenshots from my phone. I was reading this while at the gym, so hey, there you go, wellness. A huge part of the Goop experience is basically just getting access to wellness shakes and smoothies. And pretty much the bonus of the Goop experience and the amazing thing is basically you get to drink smoothies and do yoga. It's really not super impressive, but it's very interesting that the big emphasis is wellness shakes and smoothies. It very much is a reincarnation of the juice cleanse craze, if anyone remembers that. And the Goop experience is the holy grail of doing basically just juice cleanses. It's interesting because when I first read this, I was wondering, I'm like, well, if you do the Goop experience, are you eating Goop food like what Gwyneth Paltrow eats from that TikTok interview she did? Or do you just get to eat regular cruise food and then also you get her healthy stuff on top of that? The answer is most likely the latter. And I just find that so funny because we all know cruise food is not healthy. Cruises are notorious for having those all-you-can-eat buffets, and it's not good for you. So if you're just basically going there, the Goop experience is getting these shakes and doing yoga, but the rest of the time you're just eating regular cruise food. It kind of just cancels out the Goop portion of the cruise, doesn't it? I just find that so funny. To be fair, look, I've only ever been on day cruises. I haven't been on an overnight cruise, so but I'm pretty sure cruise food is not healthy because I've had casino and hotel and resort food plenty of times, and I know if it's mass serving a lot of people, it's usually not going to be the most high quality ingredients. And we continue with the smoothie craze with this quote. You guys want to go get smoothies? The small, good-looking man said. We get a Goop smoothie. We all wanted this. There is no other way to follow a Goop exercise class except with a Goop smoothie. So again, this is basically just the smoothie cruise. You're paying hundreds of dollars extra on top of your cruise ticket to get to have smoothies from Goop specifically while you consume gross all-you-can-eat buffet food. I just find that so funny. And again, the smoothies are the holy grail of health, similar to how Gwyneth Paltrow framed the very strict and undernutrient diet from that podcast interview that went viral on TikTok as also being like her holy grail for health and wellness. So now let's go into what makes this Goop smoothie great. The Goop Detox Smoothie contains coconut water, kale, mango, mint, celery, parsley, chia seeds, and spirulina. Ranges in color from spirulina to kale and tastes like a smoothie. Once ketamine Eugene has defected to his friends, the journalist informed me that he was the plus one of Ellen Bora, the holistic psychiatrist, slated to give a workshop and, on day 6, conduct the live conversation. We all found this perplexing, as Ellen seemed aggressively wholesome with bright eyes and adorable auricular protrusion. As our smoothies were hastily delivered to the large group who stressfully requested them all at once, we made tasting notes. This was mint forward and discussed our plan for the day in Marseille. So you can see that also there ends up being a very ritualistic part to consuming these because, of course, they're so special, you have to treat them as such to convince you that you are actually getting your bang for your buck. And again, in that latter part of that passage, you saw about a woman named Ellen, who is I don't know, there's like a few different spiritual consultants on this cruise who lead wellness conversations or exercises, and I'm honestly not sure what her exercise was, but okay. But that's also a huge part of it. It's not just about the food or the specific items you get, because they get like some beauty products. It's the treatment around them. They are really more like relics or idols in a temple. You act a certain way around them. You act a certain way with each other when consuming around them, because these things are so special. To prove to yourself how special they are and that you really are actually improving yourself, you have to behave as you are getting such benefits before those benefits are even visible by, again, doing all these weird exercises along with it. I said before that there was a lot of wealth shaming, if that's even a thing, in this article, or just, haha, look at these wealthy people, are so bored, they'll just do anything because they have the money for it, which is true, but it got a little bit too much in this article. There are some parts where the journalist did talk about Goop's status in the world. And so wellness has become a very divisive thing, which is really sad because wellness should just mean self-care. But self-care and wellness are basically treated as two completely separate things now. Self-care is like going to the gym, skincare, things us poor people do. Wellness is, well, going on the Goop cruise. So wellness is clearly not for everyone. It is, I'm going to say the A word, aspirational. But of course, when something is aspirational, it's open to being mocked for being classist and out of touch with society. Gwyneth Paltrow gets the Marie Antoinette treatment, or the Romanov treatment, digitally, of course, not literally. And the journalist went into Goop seeming to understand that this is becoming a big problem. This is much more straightforward than what Goop is getting out of the partnership with celebrity. The hypothesis, unconfronted, is that the collab is a half-hearted attempt at generating brand awareness among the Midwestern and Floridian disposable incomes that might become a route to expansion. In August, ABC announced that Apple's mom would be a guest judge on the new season of Shark Tank, another indication of a grab for the masses. The Goop person is curious, open-minded, a learner, a speaker, and a supporter of beauty and connection, Goop's senior communications director told me. So it seems they understand that being so aspirational and different, it worked as a good marketing tactic for shock clicks for a while, specifically in the early 2010s. But now, given everything COVID has done and given a huge critique of consumption over social media, they understand they can't seem too out of touch with the public. And I guess that is a good thing for them to realize, but Goop is going to have to reckon, though, if they change their marketing tactics, they're not going to be seen as exclusive. And if they're not going to be seen as exclusive, they might lose a lot of their uber wealthy clients. Which brings me to the last passage, and the one that I think is the most important to note. Because you have to wonder, if you're rich, you can do whatever you want. You have to wonder, if you're rich and can do what you want and can live such a happy life, why would you subject yourself to what honestly sounds awful? Yoga and shakes on a cruise sounds awful. You go on a giant boat where there's parties and bars and casinos and all you can eat buffets and all that stuff, and all you're doing is consuming gross shakes. Well, they're gross to me. I mean, I'm sure they're tasty to some other people. And talking about stuff that honestly didn't even really make sense to me in reading those passages. Why? Why would rich people be attracted to doing this stuff? Can't they just diet, exercise, and just have fun like everyone else tries to do? Ellen contends that there's a difference between false anxiety and true anxiety. False anxiety is not fake per se, and she doesn't mean to dismiss it, but it is avoidable and should be avoided because it can cloud our understanding of the truth. To determine whether your anxiety is false, you should ask yourself, I'm sorry, I'm paraphrasing. Are you actually anxious, or are you just hungry or sleepy? She speaks as if trying and failing to connect with high school students from California, and is not here to throw shade at glutamate, which is a neurotransmitter. Ellen strongly recommends buying blue light blocking glasses and a squatty potty. So that passage doesn't seem like much, but I think this accidentally touches upon something very important that is a big, huge issue in the mental health crisis, especially among people who are wealthy, or if not that, just have too much time on their hands, which is usually a byproduct of being wealthy, but I guess isn't everyone, so I want to make sure I include everyone in that scenario. So whoever Ellen is, I don't know what Ellen does, I don't really care. I find this rhetoric extremely dangerous because she's invalidating someone with mental health. And I actually understood what she was trying to get at because I used to think like this also, of like, it's false anxiety. Are you anxious, or are you just pretending to be anxious? Are you depressed, or is it something else making you think you're depressed? And I hate this way of thinking because it invalidates you and it makes you turn a blind eye to some serious issues. I don't believe in false anxiety or false depression. It's just anxiety or depressed. There's different kinds of anxiety, different kinds of depression, but all of it is valid. And this is something I notice with people who have a lot of privilege, but still are struggling with mental health. Because they have so much privilege and so much access to everything, they believe that they don't need help or that they are immune to subjecting to very serious mental health problems. Maybe it's their parents saying, you grew up with so much, how can you possibly be depressed? I give you everything, or something else. Or maybe they feel successful, so they're like, why am I so upset with myself? I'm successful, I have everything. And thus then they are attracted to thinking that the answer isn't in self-reflection, self-evaluation, getting proper mental health counseling. It's in lifestyle adjustments. And then that is the kind of thinking where companies like Goop thrive, because Goop is just offering products that are a lifestyle adjustment, but imply an answer to something more serious that honestly no product can fix. And I've noticed that wealthy people can struggle with accepting their own problems with mental health wise for two reasons. Either they have too much time on their hands, I mean, because they're very privileged and don't work, and thus they spend their days doing nothing and then look for something to do and then feel very lost with themselves, and then but also feel like they shouldn't because theoretically they can do everything but just don't know what, which doesn't seem like a big problem, but I think it is. And then of course then they buy Goop products and go to Goop cruises as the fix. Or they don't have enough time on their hands to really assess themselves because they have very successful careers that are very busy and demanding, and thus they don't have much time for self-reflection and wondering if they truly are happy where they are. Then here's the problem. This is a perfect environment for depression to start thriving. And depression immunizes you to being able to feel pain and respond to pain properly to take care of yourself and fix the problem. And because of that, this is why I think among the uber wealthy people now, people like Gwyneth Paltrow, or that CEO guy who is trying to reverse aging, they're so desperate to push wellness and wholesomeness with actual physical things, and yet somehow but they end up doing stuff that just harms them even more because they're living a life and surrounding themselves with people who simply are not able to get in touch with what their real problems are, then mentally immunize themselves to what actually can cause self-harm, being content with what theoretically should make them happy, not actually what will. And I think that's also a big problem when it comes to eating disorders, disguised under the banner of health, because people with anorexia are obtaining a goal that isn't really being acknowledged or admitted. And that secret goal can easily mask under the if I just subject myself to serious pain in these lifestyle adjustments, then I'll be happy enough that I'll start feeling better about myself. I think it's a huge problem. I know this article was lighthearted, but I think if we really dove into the people going on these cruises and doing all this weird stuff with Gwyneth Paltrow, we'd see they probably have much more serious issues that need to be addressed. She has not been really doing anything different than what we already know her to do, but I think she is getting messier. She is really struggling to keep relevant online, and it's showing in her social media presence, particularly TikTok. So before I talk about her, though, I want to talk a little bit more about the identity of fat acceptance and body positivity online. The basic message of fat acceptance or body positivity is don't discriminate against plus size people, and also advocating for more mainstream acceptance of different kinds of bodies in the mainstream media. And I think that is a fantastic message to advocate for. And people have been doing it for decades, if not centuries. And there are many academics who've done many studies and written books and articles and all that about the influence of different body sizes on people and what different body sizes represent and how that ties into femininity, gender, sexism, and women's liberation. The thing is, though, Tess Holliday is not an academic. Most of us aren't. Most of us do not have PhDs in sociology, psychology, or media, and that's totally fine. But something like fat acceptance or body positivity and its history is very hard to convey into online content. And it's even harder to build a social media brand off of and become an influencer. And like I said, we're not academics. We're not good. Not many of us are really good at translating all this context from centuries and cultures into, well, a short video or an Instagram post or whatever else. Well, I should just quickly say, just a quick shout out. If you really, really, really are interested in an in-depth academic survey of the issue with the obsession with thinness, I recommend Jean Kilbourne's Killing Us Softly 4, which is a very great documentary and speech. It really does a great job. So just to actually shout out a really professional academic there. So as I was saying, we're not all academic. We're not all that smart, and that's fine. But for someone who really, really, really wants to become an expert and advocate for fat acceptance and body positivity, but isn't very good at understanding everything that goes with it, and also wants to become an influencer, well, that's where the whole message takes a bit of a turn. Because something that ties into fat acceptance and body positivity that is easier to translate into content online is, well, I would say the spin-off ideology of things like health at every size and sexuality and plus size, denouncing things like thinness, exercise, any kind of care towards health, simply because those things do what academic body positivity and fat acceptance do, but don't require all that background knowledge. An example of someone trying to use their academic credentials to push the very unacademic side of body positivity and health at every size is educator Sonali Rashitwar. And the thing is, you see, what I cannot stand about her, and this is something that I have not seen other people say much about, is she brands herself being a trauma therapist, which is great. And she then uses that to talk about discrimination of body sizes and all that. But the thing is, that academic background doesn't quite align with what she advocates for, because, come on, not every single person who has experienced discrimination for body size has a horrible trauma like what her academic training has set her up for. So it's kind of annoying that basically she relates everything to do with body positivity and fat acceptance to her academic training, which is severe trauma for horrible things, like sexual assault. And that's basically saying that anything to do with body size is akin to being sexually assaulted. And the thing is, she said exactly that. She said that gyms are like Nazi concentration camps, and most recently, her most recent scandal is saying that there would be less rape in the world if there was less stigma on doing more sexually experimental stuff, like women partaking in a sex game of drugging themselves unconscious and men having sex with them unconscious in some weird BDSM fantasy, something she had to apologize for. So you see how utterly crazy that gets. And again, she's someone who very much has latched on to health at every size, fat acceptance, but the kind that basically is like, anything else that's said about bodies is completely invalid and only I'm right because, well, I have an academic background in trauma therapy, which isn't really quite the same as sociology of evolution of the beauty standards and what beauty standards do to people, because that's not all really the trauma. That's a completely separate thing. But just had to add that in there. Explaining why wanting to work out is bad, why wanting to diet is bad, makes for a much better short Instagram caption essay than the history and knowledge of diet, exercise, and nutrition, which is why you end up with, well, something like this guest post on Virgie Tovar's Instagram.
I'm Molly, and I am a fat dietitian to be. Recently, I got to teach a middle school health class about nutrition. And then what happened? I got in a bag of food and told them to sort it as they wanted. And they sorted it into a pile of healthy and a pile of unhealthy foods. What did you do? Then I took some food off of their healthy pile and put it in their unhealthy pile. Then I took some of their unhealthy foods and put it on the healthy pile.
And then...
And I asked them, how do you feel about that? Oh my God! They were so mad at me. They looked at the Snickers in the healthy pile and were like, what are you doing? I think the Snickers is healthy because it makes me feel good and it gives me energy.
There's nothing wrong with wanting to become an influencer based on a very activist message for an overall societal cause, but it can be a very tricky tightrope because you don't want to come off like you're just taking advantage of a series of struggle many people go through just for your own personal gain, like gaining a following, getting sponsorships, and brand deals. I don't think that's how Tess Holliday started, but that seems to be where she's been going for quite some time now. I think Tess Holliday is at the point where she's exhausted everything she can say about fat positivity, loving her fat self, denouncing the diet industry, and her eating disorder grift, which, haven't gotten much of an update on that since, but we all know my feelings about that and the rest of the internet's feelings about that. And now she's in kind of a bind because, again, she always says she wants to be a positive force for good. F your beauty standards. Her social media presence is all about self-love and positivity. But that has taken her as far as it can, and she still wants to go farther. So even though she's all about self-love and positivity, she's still fits in negativity, semi-bullying other people online vaguely, again, just so she can keep on having something to say, so she can keep putting out what is she sees as valuable content. What I mean by this is, post this TikTok video.
Excuse the sound of sizzling sausage in the background, but I have to tell you something that is truly going to change your brain. We are well into January, and that means we are seeing people that are losing weight, doing weight loss things, moving their bodies, eating differently, and I want to tell you that none of that has anything to do with you. If that's something that you want to do, then I think it's wonderful. If it's something that you're not able to do, it's okay too. There's been so many plus size and fat creators losing weight and changing their bodies, and I know people are mad, but at the end of the day, people need to do what they feel is best with their bodies, and nobody owes anybody anything. And I know how it can feel like a slap in the face and you feel so betrayed, but guess what? The only person in charge of your happiness is you. And to be honest, that is a beautiful, liberating thing. Let me check the sausage though. Okay, so I'm done with breakfast. This is my breakfast. It's like Greek yogurt, chia seeds, flax seeds, pumpkin, blueberries, blackberries, all the good stuff, eggs, hash browns, tomatoes, anti-inflammatory things for me. So we're using Bowie's plates and bowls. I don't want to, whatever. And here's Bowie's. This is his breakfast: hash browns, boiled eggs, sausage, blackberries, strawberries. You know how to feed your body best. Nobody else. Listen to your body. Do what feels good for your body. Honor that. Don't pay attention to everybody else and the background noise. And just remember that everybody else is fighting a battle that you know nothing about. And it's a lot easier to judge people than it is just to heal yourself. Sending you love.
A lot of other people have pointed out how hypocritical that video is because she's saying, don't mind other people. What other people are doing is none of your business and you don't have to take any of it personally. It does not apply to you. And yet she railed against Gwyneth Paltrow's diet regime, saying, how dare she post that, blah, 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 blah. Oh, okay, don't know what happened about that. But you know what? That's not my main issue with this video. Well, it's interesting. She's posting her food, which she says she has an eating disorder and she wants to be an eating disorder advocate. And she went to the UN to advocate for eating disorders. So shouldn't she know, Tess, that can be triggering your healthy diet meals? The title of this video was captioned something like weight loss or something. I'll put it here. So that, Tess, that's triggering to your audience and you're showing eating disorder. You should know better. Okay, but whatever. Look, that wasn't a harmless TikTok. But then she posted this video.
If there's one thing that social media is going to do, it's going to make us all feel bad about ourselves. It's always going to make us feel like we need to fix something, like we're the problem, and we're not. I've been seeing so much discourse about legging legs, and I don't know what that is. I think that's the silliest thing that I've ever heard. And even though I think it's silly, there's a ton of people on here that probably would look at themselves and think, there's something wrong with my body. And no, there's not. There's not. This is what my body looks like. I know I'm fat. I know I'm not everybody's cup of tea. But what I do know after, 14 years of being in the body positive industry and as somebody that has existed online and grown up online in front of millions of people around the world, I can tell you it doesn't stop. It doesn't stop. The only way that you can stop it and then we can stop it is to ignore it, is to pretend it doesn't exist, because those people don't matter. There's always going to be something new. There's always going to be something that they're going to make you feel bad about, and you're just going to scream in your bed or alone, wherever, I don't know, closet, your car. I like to cry in my car, scream in my car sometimes, but it doesn't matter. You're going to find your space that you are able to just scream and let it go, because it's never ending. It's not. And it's not you. You're not the problem. You're not. It's the people at the top that continue to profit off of your insecurities and to tell you that there is something wrong with your body. And there isn't. There isn't. There just isn't.
So that most recent video, the legging stuff, is just completely contradicts what she said on the one where she was cooking and eating her breakfast. Because first she says, don't pay attention to other people. Why should you care? It doesn't matter. Don't let it affect your self-esteem. And then she rails against and says, ugh, God, look at these people. The leggings legs trend. What leggings? No, they're gross. Come on, no, look at me. Look at me. This is what you should be admiring here. This is what you should be feeling good about, okay? So, okay, yes, that's right, Tess. You're telling your audience, don't care about what anyone else is doing online, doesn't matter to you, except me. If I don't like it, then go ahead and pay attention to me and you pay attention to why I don't like it and follow me. And of course, there was a lot of, just shading and jabbing towards, again, anyone who has a different idea of what's healthy or beautiful out there online, even though in that first TikTok I played, she said, doesn't matter. And also, I think in that first TikTok, when she talked about other plus size creators losing weight, I think she was subtly shading Anna O'Brien of Glitters and Lasers, who's made a lot of kind of rounds on social media commentary about her weight loss journey and the issues with that. I do think that was a shade to Glitters and Lasers. So overall, Tess just can't keep it straight. Because again, she's running out of content ideas. She's said the same thing for years now. And at this point, she's going to keep on saying it because she has no other choice. But the only way to keep having something to say is to go against her own message and be like, everyone, don't mind each other's business. It's your body, your journey, whatever. And then a few later, God, the legging language trends is disgusting. Which, Tess, that's commenting on someone else's body. So, I'm sorry, and it's gonna collapse into her eventually. But let's see how she handles it until she finds something else to get sympathy for. I'm still waiting for another eating disorder update or some new illness. Anyway, tell me what you think. Have a good day.